Hey guys, tonight we begin with something that might make you dream of treasure maps and sea adventures. The utterly nauseating reality of pirate survival during the golden age of piracy. We're diving into what life was really like for the desperate souls who turned to piracy between 1650 and 1730. Not the swashbuckling heroes Hollywood sold you. Those were fictional characters designed to sell movie tickets and theme park rides. The truth is, if you were dropped onto a pirate ship during this era, you probably wouldn't survive your first week at sea. You'd be dead faster than a pirate legend spreads through a tavern. And believe me, that's pretty fast when everyone's drunk, and there's literally nothing else to do except tell stories and die of scurvy. So before you get comfortable in your modern bed with its miracle of temperature control and actual sanitation, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world as we explore the lives of people who never got to see the world unless they were stealing from it. Because GPS wasn't invented yet and getting lost at sea meant becoming fish food with zero chance of rescue. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft ocean breeze simulation, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. A journey through salt spray, disease, and the kind of survival that makes modern camping look like staying at a 5-star resort with room service and unlimited Wi-Fi. You wake up in 1698, not in your comfortable bed with its memory foam and thread count that would make a pirate weep with envy. You wake up in a hammock that's probably made from scraps of old sailcloth. Your back aches from sleeping on what feels like a twisted rope pretzel. The smell hits you first. It's not the romantic ocean breeze of vacation commercials. It's the concentrated essence of unwashed human bodies mixed with rotting food and human waste. Congratulations, you're on a pirate ship. And you're about to discover why the average life expectancy of a pirate was roughly 25 years old. The ship rocks violently beneath you. Not the gentle swaying of a cruise ship with stabilizers and modern engineering. This is a wooden death trap held together by tar, hope, and the occasional prayer to whatever god might be listening. You try to stand up and immediately understand why sea legs are a real thing. Your body has no idea how to compensate for the constant motion. You stumble into the person next to you, a man named Jack, who hasn't bathed in approximately 3 months. "Watch where you're going, you landlubber scum," Jack growls. His teeth are either missing or various shades of brown and black. His breath could knock a seagull out of the sky. Captain's calling all hands on deck. Move your worthless hide before he decides to use you for shark bait. You climb up from the lower deck. The ladder is slippery with moisture that you really hope is just seawater. But you know better. Everything on this ship is covered in a mixture of bodily fluids, rotting organic matter, and salt. The salt preserves everything, including the smell. You emerge onto the main deck and immediately wish you hadn't. The sun blinds you. Your skin, accustomed to modern sunscreen and indoor living, starts burning within minutes. The deck is hot enough to cook an egg, if you had an egg, which you don't. Captain Bartholomew, Black Bart Roberts, stands at the bow of the ship. He's not the romantic figure from movies. He's a hard man with scars covering his face and arms. His coat might have been red once. Now it's a color that doesn't exist in nature. At least not in anything living. He's probably 30 years old, but looks 50. That's what constant exposure to salt, sun, and violence does to a human body. "Listen up, you miserable dogs," Black Bart shouts. His voice carries across the deck with the authority of someone who's killed people for less than talking back. "We're approaching the merchant vessel we spotted yesterday. This is your chance to prove you're worth the space you take up on my ship. Anyone who shows cowardice gets fed to the sharks. Anyone who tries to desert gets hung from the yardarm. Anyone who steals from the cruise share gets buried at sea while they're still breathing." You realize this isn't a job interview. This is a death sentence with extra steps. Piracy in the late 1600s wasn't a career choice. It was what desperate people did when every other option had been exhausted. Most pirates were former sailors who'd been treated so badly by legitimate merchant ships or naval vessels that risking death by hanging seemed preferable to continuing their previous employment. The ship approaches its target. You can see the merchant vessel in the distance. It's flying British colours. The year is 1698. Britain controls much of the world's shipping lanes. They also control much of the world's wealth, which means they also control much of the world's opportunities for legitimate employment. If you were born poor in this era, you stayed poor, unless you were willing to risk everything for the slim chance of stealing enough wealth to change your circumstances. Thomas, Black Bart calls to a young man standing near the cannons. Ready the guns. We'll give them one chance to surrender. If they refuse, we'll send them to Davy Jones' locker. Thomas nods and begins preparing the ship's artillery. You notice his hands are shaking. He's probably 15 years old, maybe 16. Children in this era didn't have the luxury of extended adolescence. You either learned to fight and steal and kill, or you died. Often both happened regardless. The merchant ship tries to run. Its captain has probably seen pirate flags before. He knows what's coming. But running requires wind. And the wind today is barely strong enough to move either vessel at walking speed. The chase will take hours. Hours of anxiety and preparation, and the growing certainty that people are going to die today. You're handed a cutlass. It's heavier than you expected. The blade is dull from use and poor maintenance. The handle is wrapped in leather that's slippery with sweat and blood from previous battles. You've never held a sword in your life. Your combat experience consists of video games and maybe a few playground fights in elementary school, none of which prepared you for the reality of trying to kill another human being with a sharp piece of metal. "First time holding a blade?" asks a woman's voice behind you. You turn around and see Mary, one of the few female pirates on the ship. She's wearing men's clothing and her hair is cut short. Not because she's making a fashion statement, because long hair is a liability in combat. It gives enemies something to grab. You look like you're about to wet yourself. "I've never done this before," you admit. Mary laughs. It's not a pleasant sound. None of us had done this before our first time. The trick is to remember that the person you're fighting wants to kill you more than you want to kill them. Use that fear. Let it make you mean. Because if you hesitate for even a second, you'll be dead before you hit the deck. The ships draw closer. You can see individual people on the merchant vessel now. They're preparing for battle too. Some of them look terrified, others look resigned, a few look angry. These are ordinary people trying to make a living by transporting goods across the ocean. They didn't ask to be attacked by pirates, but they're about to fight for their lives anyway. Black Bart raises a black flag with a white skull and crossbones. This is the Jolly Roger. It's not a symbol of adventure and fun. It's a promise of death. The message is simple. Surrender now or everyone dies. No quarter given. No prisoners taken. Just violence and death, and maybe some profit if you're lucky enough to survive. The merchant ship responds by raising its own flag, a Union Jack. They're going to fight. This means people are definitely going to die today. Probably a lot of people. And you're going to be expected to participate in the killing. "Grappling hooks ready," Black Bart commands. Several pirates prepare ropes with metal hooks attached. These will be thrown onto the merchant ship to pull the vessels together. Once the ships are connected, boarding will begin. Hand-to-hand combat with swords and pistols and whatever makeshift weapons people can find. You look around at your fellow pirates. Most of them seem calm. This is routine for them. They've done this before, multiple times. Some of them are probably looking forward to it. Not because they enjoy killing, but because successful piracy means food and money, and maybe a few weeks of not worrying about survival. The ships collide. The impact throws you off balance. You grab the nearest rope to steady yourself. The rope is rough and tears at your hands. Your palms are already bleeding. This is just the beginning. Pirates start throwing grappling hooks. Some of them connect. The ships are pulled together with grinding, splintering sounds as wood scrapes against wood. "Board!" Black Bart screams. Pirates start jumping from your ship to the merchant vessel. You hesitate. This is the moment where you either become a pirate or die trying. There's no middle ground. No option to sit this one out. No way to call in sick or request a transfer to a different department. Someone pushes you forward. You jump. The gap between ships is maybe 6 feet. In your modern life, this would be an easy leap. But you're weak from poor nutrition and dehydrated from drinking nothing but watered-down rum for weeks. Your legs don't have the strength you're used to. You barely make it across. You land hard on the merchant ship's deck. Fighting erupts around you. The sounds are nothing like movie battles. Real sword fighting is clumsy and desperate and exhausting. People are screaming, some from anger, some from pain, some from terror. Blood starts spreading across the deck. It makes the surface slippery and dangerous. A merchant sailor rushes at you with a boarding axe. He's trying to split your skull open. You raise your cutlass to block. The impact sends shock waves up your arms. Your weapon is knocked out of your hands. You're now unarmed in the middle of a battle to the death. The sailor raises his axe for another strike. You do the only thing you can think of. You tackle him. Both of you crash to the deck. He's stronger than you, better fed, more experienced in fighting. But you have the advantage of desperation. You're fighting for your life against someone who's also fighting for his life. This isn't a sport with rules and referees. This is survival. You grab for his axe. He grabs for your throat. You're rolling around on a blood-slicked deck while people fight and die around you. This is what piracy actually looked like. Not elegant sword duels or heroic speeches. Just desperate people trying to kill each other for money. Mary appears above you. She drives her cutlass into the sailor's back. He goes limp. Blood pours from his mouth onto your face. You're covered in a stranger's blood within your first 5 minutes of pirate combat. Mary helps you to your feet. "Stay close to me," she says, "and pick up a weapon. The fight's not over." You grab the dead sailor's axe. It's heavier than your cutlass was. The handle is sticky with blood. Your hands are shaking so badly you can barely hold it. But you don't have a choice. The battle continues around you. The merchant ship's crew is outnumbered. They're also outgunned. Pirates specialize in violence. Merchant sailors specialize in moving cargo. The outcome was determined before the first blow was struck. Within 20 minutes, the fighting is over. Several people are dead. More are wounded. You're still alive, barely. Black Bart surveys the captured ship. His eyes are cold and calculating. He's evaluating the cargo, determining what's valuable enough to steal and what's too heavy or worthless to bother with. This is a business calculation. Piracy is profit-driven. Everything else is just method. "Take the sugar and tobacco," he orders. "Leave the lumber. Too heavy and not worth enough. Check for gold or silver. And rum. Always take the rum." Pirates start moving cargo from the merchant ship to your vessel. This is hard, dangerous work. Sugar comes in heavy barrels. Tobacco is packed in massive hogsheads that weigh several hundred pounds each. Moving this cargo requires coordinated effort from multiple people. And it has to be done quickly. Other ships might appear. Naval patrols might arrive. Every minute spent transferring cargo increases the risk of capture. You help carry a barrel of sugar. Your back immediately starts aching. This barrel probably weighs 150 pounds. In your modern life, you might lift this much weight total during an entire workout at the gym. Now you're expected to carry it across 2 moving ships while exhausted from combat and dehydrated from weeks of poor nutrition. The barrel slips from your hands. It crashes to the deck and splits open. Sugar spills everywhere. Precious cargo is now mixing with blood and seawater. Black Bart notices. "You clumsy fool," he shouts. "That sugar was worth more than your worthless life. You'll work double shifts for the next week to make up for it." Double shifts on a pirate ship mean 4 hours of sleep per night. If you're lucky, most of the time you'll get less. Sleep deprivation becomes constant. Your judgment suffers. Your reflexes slow. You make more mistakes. which leads to more punishment. It's a cycle designed to break weak crew members. The looting takes 3 hours. By the time it's finished, the sun is setting. The merchant ship is left to drift. Its crew is either dead or stranded. They have no cargo to sell when they reach port. If they reach port, many of them will probably die from their wounds or starvation before they see land again. Your pirate ship sails away from the scene. The deck is covered in blood and debris. Nobody cleans it up. Blood will eventually be washed away by waves and rain, or it will dry and become part of the ship's permanent stain. Either way, it's not your job to worry about it. Dinner is served at sunset. The meal consists of hardtack and salted pork. Hardtack is basically a dense biscuit that's been baked until it's hard enough to break teeth. It's designed to last for months without rotting. The trade-off is that it has no flavor and requires significant effort to chew. Salted pork is exactly what it sounds like. Pork that's been preserved with salt. So much salt that it burns your mouth and makes you incredibly thirsty. "Eat up, landlubber," says Jack. "This is the good food. Wait until we've been at sea for a few more weeks. Then we'll be eating weevil-infested hardtack and pork that's gone green with mold." You try to eat the hardtack. It's like chewing on a piece of wood. Your jaw muscles ache after a few bites. The salted pork is so salty, it makes your eyes water. But you're hungry enough to force it down. Hunger is a powerful motivator. You'll eat almost anything when the alternative is starvation. Water is rationed. Each crew member gets 1 cup per day. It's not fresh water. It's been stored in barrels for weeks. It tastes like the wood it's stored in, mixed with algae and whatever bacteria has grown in the stagnant liquid. And wetness is all that matters when you're dying of thirst. "Why did you become a pirate?" you ask Mary while choking down your dinner. She looks at you like you've asked the stupidest question in the world. "Become a pirate? It was a career choice?" "I didn't become anything. I survived. My husband died of yellow fever in Port Royal. Left me with debts I couldn't pay and no way to earn legitimate money. Women can't own property, can't get jobs that pay enough to live on, can't travel without male protection. So I dressed like a man and joined a pirate crew. It was either this or prostitution, and prostitutes don't get to carry swords. This is the reality of piracy during the Golden Age. It wasn't a romantic adventure, it was economic desperation. Most pirates were people who'd been pushed to the margins of society. Former sailors who'd been mistreated by legitimate employers, escaped slaves who had no legal status anywhere, women who had no other options for independence, debtors who faced prison or death if they stayed on land. Night falls quickly in the Caribbean. Without electric lights, darkness is absolute. The only illumination comes from stars and a few oil lanterns on deck. You try to sleep in your hammock. The ship rocks constantly. Every few minutes, a wave crashes against the hull loud enough to wake you up. When you do manage to fall asleep, you dream about the man you watched die today, his blood on your face. The sound he made when Mary's sword went through his back. You wake up at dawn. Not because you're well rested, because someone kicks your hammock hard enough to nearly dump you on the floor. It's Thomas, the young man who handled the cannons yesterday. "Captain wants to see you," he says. Now, you follow Thomas to Black Bart's cabin. It's the nicest space on the ship, which isn't saying much. The cabin has a real bed instead of a hammock, a small table with charts spread across it, a few personal possessions that suggest this man was educated before he turned to piracy. Books, navigation instruments, a portrait of a woman who might have been his wife or daughter. "Sit down," Black Bart says, without looking up from his charts. "We need to discuss your future on this ship." You sit on a wooden crate. It's not comfortable. Nothing on this ship is designed for comfort. "Yesterday was your first battle?" he continues. "You performed adequately, didn't run away, didn't get yourself killed, didn't get anyone else killed. That's better than most new crew members manage." This feels like a compliment. In the context of piracy, not dying during your first battle is apparently an achievement worth noting. But you also cost us a barrel of sugar through clumsiness. Sugar is valuable, more valuable than you are currently. So we need to determine whether keeping you alive is profitable for this crew. You realize this is a job performance review, where poor performance results in death rather than termination. I can learn, you say. I'll get stronger, more skilled. I won't make the same mistakes again. Black Bart finally looks at you. His eyes are completely cold. This is a man who's made hundreds of life or death decisions about other human beings. Your life means nothing to him beyond its potential contribution to the crew's survival and profit. Everyone says that, he replies. Most people are wrong, but I'm willing to give you a chance, conditional on your performance over the next month. If you prove useful, you live. If you don't, you go overboard. Understood? You nod. There's no point in negotiating. These are the terms of your employment as a pirate. Perform or die. There are no other options. Good. Now get out of my cabin. Thomas will assign you duties for today. You leave the captain's cabin and report to Thomas. He's standing near the ship's wheel, consulting a compass and making notes on a piece of paper. Navigation in 1700 requires skill and experience that most modern people can't imagine. There's no GPS, no weather reports, no radio communication with other ships. You navigate by stars, compass, and dead reckoning. If you make a mistake, everyone dies. You're on sail duty today, Thomas tells you. The mainsail needs repair. There's a tear near the bottom that'll get worse if we don't fix it. Sail repair involves climbing up the ship's rigging. The rigging is a complex network of ropes and pulleys that control the sails. It extends from the deck to the top of the masts, which are probably 60 feet above the water. You have to climb this rigging while the ship is moving, while the wind is blowing, while waves are rocking the vessel back and forth. You start climbing. The ropes are rough and slippery. Your hands are still sore from yesterday's fighting. Every few feet you have to stop and rest. Your arms and legs are shaking from the effort. Below you, the deck looks very far away. If you fall, you'll either hit the wooden deck hard enough to break bones, or you'll miss the ship entirely and fall into the ocean. Either option probably results in death. Mary is already working on the sail when you finally reach the correct position. She's secured herself to the rigging with a rope around her waist. She's stitching the torn sail with a large needle and heavy thread. Her movements are quick and confident. She's done this hundreds of times before. Took you long enough, she says, without looking up from her work. Hold this section of sail steady while I work on the tier. You grab the fabric and try to keep it from flapping in the wind. Sails are made of canvas, which is heavy and rough. The wind keeps trying to rip it out of your hands. Your grip is weakening quickly. If you let go, the sail will tear further, and Mary will have to start over. Why did you choose this life? You ask, while struggling with the canvas. Mary stops stitching and looks at you. Choose? You think any of us chose this? I told you yesterday. I was widowed with debts. But you want the whole story? Fine. My husband owned a small farm in Jamaica. We grew sugar cane. Backbreaking work, but it was ours. Then he got sick. Yellow fever. Do you know what yellow fever does to a person? You shake your head. First you get a high fever. Then your skin turns yellow. That's where the name comes from. Then you start bleeding internally. Blood comes out of your mouth, your nose, your eyes. You vomit blood until there's nothing left to vomit. Then you die. Takes about a week. A week of watching someone you love suffer and knowing there's nothing you can do to help them. She returns to her stitching. Her movements are more aggressive now, like she's attacking the sail instead of repairing it. After he died, I discovered our debts. Medical bills. Money we'd borrowed to buy seed and equipment. I owed more than the farm was worth. The creditors took everything. Left me with nothing but the clothes I was wearing. A woman alone with no money has very limited options in 1700. I could remarry if I found someone desperate enough to take on a widow's debts. I could become a servant and work for room and board. I could turn to prostitution, or I could disguise myself as a man and join a pirate crew. So you chose piracy. I chose survival, she corrects. Piracy was just the method. And it's worked out better than I expected. I eat regularly. I have money in my pocket. I can defend myself. I answer to no man except the captain, and he respects my skills enough to leave me alone. Compare that to the life of a typical woman in this era, married off to whoever her father chooses, expected to produce children whether she wants them or not. No legal rights, no financial independence, no way to leave an abusive husband. Piracy might be dangerous, but at least it's my choice to be here. You finish repairing the sail just as the sun reaches its peak. Climbing down is almost as difficult as climbing up. Your muscles are exhausted, your hands are cramped from gripping ropes, but you make it to the deck without falling or dying. Small victories. Lunch consists of the same hardtack and salted pork from dinner. Variety is not a feature of pirate cuisine. You eat the same basic foods every day until supplies run out. Then you eat whatever you can find or steal. Sometimes that means turtle meat. Sometimes it means seagull. Sometimes it means going hungry for days at a time. The afternoon is spent scrubbing the deck. This involves getting on your hands and knees with a brush and bucket of seawater. You scrub away bloodstains from yesterday's battle. You scrub away salt deposits from spray and waves. You scrub away the accumulated grime of dozens of unwashed pirates living in close quarters. The work is monotonous and physically demanding. Your knees ache from kneeling on hard wood. Your hands blister from gripping the brush. The salt water burns every small cut and scrape on your skin. But this is your job. If you don't do it well, someone else will have to do it for you. And that someone else will probably express their displeasure with violence. "Move faster, landlubber," Jack calls from across the deck. "We don't have all day for your delicate scrubbing technique." You increase your pace. The brush slips in your wet hands and flies across the deck. It slides into a coil of rope and disappears. Now you have to fish it out without disturbing the rope arrangement. Ship's ropes are organized in specific patterns for quick access during emergencies. If you mess up the organization, someone could die when the crew needs to adjust sails quickly during a storm. You carefully extract your brush and return to scrubbing. The deck is huge. It will take hours to clean properly. Your back is already aching from being bent over. This is what most of pirate life actually involves. Not exciting battles or treasure hunting. Just hard, repetitive manual labor under harsh conditions. Evening brings another meal of hardtack and salted pork. You're starting to understand why pirates were always looking for fresh food when they made port. Eating the same preserved foods every day is not just boring. It's unhealthy. Pirates frequently suffered from scurvy, a disease caused by lack of vitamin C. Scurvy causes your teeth to fall out, your gums to bleed, and wounds to reopen. It can kill you if left untreated. "Tomorrow we're stopping at Tortuga," Black Bart announces to the crew. "We'll take on fresh water and supplies. Anyone who wants to spend their share of yesterday's loot is welcome to do so. Anyone who causes trouble in port will be left behind, permanently." Tortuga is a famous pirate haven in the Caribbean. It's one of the few places where pirates can openly trade stolen goods, recruit new crew members, and enjoy themselves without worrying about arrest by colonial authorities. It's also a place where violence is common and life is cheap. You try to sleep in your hammock again. The ship is approaching land, so the waves are smaller and the motion is less violent. But sleep is still difficult. Your body aches from 2 days of hard labor. Your mind races with thoughts about tomorrow. What will Tortuga be like? Will you survive another day of pirate life? Will you ever see your modern world again? You wake up at dawn to the sound of shouting. The ship is approaching Tortuga's harbor. You can see the island in the distance. It's smaller than you expected. Just a rocky outcrop covered with tropical vegetation. The harbor is filled with ships. Some are merchant vessels. Others are clearly pirate ships. You can tell the difference because pirate ships tend to be more heavily armed and less concerned with appearance. The process of entering port is complex. First, the ship has to navigate through coral reefs that could tear holes in the hull, if approached incorrectly. Then it has to find an open space in the crowded harbour. Then it has to anchor securely enough to prevent drifting into other ships. All of this requires skill and experience that takes years to develop. "Drop anchor," Black Bart commands. Several crew members work together to lower a massive iron anchor into the water. The anchor weighs several £100. Dropping it requires coordinated effort and careful timing. If something goes wrong, people can be crushed or dragged overboard. The anchor catches on the sea bottom and the ship stops moving. You're now officially in port at Tortuga, one of the most infamous pirate havens in the Caribbean. A place where normal laws don't apply, and violence is the primary method of conflict resolution. "Listen up, you dogs," Black Bart addresses the crew. "We'll be here for 3 days, long enough to resupply and give everyone a chance to spend some money. Your share of yesterday's haul is 5 pieces of 8 each. That's enough for food, drink, and entertainment if you're careful with it. Anyone who gets arrested is on their own. Anyone who misses the ship when we sail gets left behind. Any questions?" No one has questions. The terms are clear. You have 3 days of shore leave with a small amount of money to spend. After that, you're back to the hard life of piracy. Small boats ferry crew members from the ship to the dock. You climb into one of these boats with Mary, Thomas, and Jack. The boat is overcrowded and sits low in the water. One large wave could swamp it and drown everyone aboard, but reaching shore requires accepting this risk. The dock at Tortuga is busy and chaotic. Pirates are loading and unloading cargo. Merchants are haggling over prices. Women are advertising their services to anyone with money. Children are begging or picking pockets. The air smells like fish, rum, and unwashed bodies. Welcome to pirate paradise. You follow your crewmates into the town. The streets are narrow and muddy. Buildings are mostly wood construction with thatched roofs. Nothing is painted or decorated. Function matters more than appearance. Most buildings are taverns, brothels, or shops selling supplies to ship crews. "First stop is the Faithful Bride," Jack announces. "Best rum on the island, and the wenches are clean enough that you probably won't catch anything that'll kill you." The Faithful Bride is a 2-story building with a sign showing a woman in a wedding dress holding a bottle of rum. The irony is not subtle. This is not a place where faithful brides spend their time. Inside, the tavern is dark and crowded. The air is thick with tobacco smoke and the smell of spilled alcohol. Pirates are drinking, gambling, and negotiating various illegal transactions. A few fights are in progress, but nobody seems concerned about them. Violence is just part of the atmosphere. You order rum, because that's what everyone else is drinking. The bartender pours a generous measure of clear liquid that burns your throat and makes your eyes water. This is not the refined rum you might buy in a modern liquor store. This is raw alcohol designed to get people drunk as quickly and cheaply as possible. "To surviving another raid," Jack raises his cup in a toast. Everyone drinks. The rum hits your empty stomach like liquid fire. You're not used to drinking pure alcohol. Your tolerance is essentially 0. Within minutes, you're feeling dizzy and nauseated. A fight breaks out at a nearby table. 2 pirates are arguing about cards. One accuses the other of cheating. The accused pirate responds by drawing a knife. The first pirate draws his own knife. Within seconds, they're trying to kill each other over what amounts to pocket change. "Shouldn't someone stop them?" you ask Mary. She laughs. "Stop them? Why? They're both idiots. Let them solve their own problems. If one of them dies, there's more rum for the rest of us." The fight ends when one pirate drives his knife into the other's chest. The wounded man falls to the floor and stops moving. Blood spreads across the wooden planks. The winner calmly cleans his knife and returns to his card game. Several people step over the corpse to reach the bar. No one calls for authorities or medical help. Dead pirates are just part of the scenery. "Welcome to Tortuga," Thomas says with a grin, "where life is cheap and rum is cheaper." You spend the next few hours drinking and listening to your crewmates tell stories about previous raids. The stories get more elaborate and violent as the rum consumption increases. Everyone has fought monsters, seduced impossible women, and stolen incredible treasures. Most of these stories are probably lies, but they're entertaining lies told by people who live dangerous lives. A woman approaches your table. She's young and attractive, but her eyes are hard and calculating. She's wearing a low-cut dress that shows off assets that are clearly for sale. "Looking for company tonight, sailor?" she asks with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. "He's broke," Jack answers before you can respond. "Spent all his money on rum already." This is a lie. You still have most of your 5 pieces of 8. But Jack is protecting you from making a costly mistake. Prostitution in 1700 carries serious health risks. Syphilis, gonorrhea, and other sexually transmitted diseases are common and often fatal. There are no antibiotics or effective treatments. What seems like harmless fun could result in slow, painful death. The woman moves on to other potential customers. She'll find someone willing to pay for her services. There's no shortage of lonely, drunk pirates with money to spend. The evening continues with more drinking and storytelling. You're getting progressively more intoxicated. The room spins when you turn your head too quickly. Your speech is slurred. Your judgment is impaired. This is dangerous in a place where violence can erupt without warning. "Time to get some sleep," Mary announces around midnight. "We have 2 more days here, and I don't want to spend them nursing a hangover." She helps you to your feet. Walking is more difficult than it should be. The rum has affected your balance and coordination. You stumble out of the tavern into the cool night air. The contrast between the hot, smoky interior and the fresh air outside makes you feel slightly better. "Where are we sleeping?" you ask. "There's a boarding house down the street," Mary replies. "Clean beds and no questions asked. Costs 2 pieces of 8 for the 3 nights we're here." You hand over the money and follow Mary to the boarding house. It's a simple building with a dozen small rooms. Each room contains a narrow bed with a straw mattress and a single blanket. The accommodations are basic, but they're better than sleeping on the ship. You collapse onto the bed without bothering to remove your clothes. The mattress is lumpy, and the blanket scratches your skin, but you're exhausted and drunk enough that comfort doesn't matter. You fall asleep immediately. You wake up feeling terrible. Your head throbs with pain. Your mouth tastes like something crawled inside and died. Your stomach churns with nausea. This is your first experience with a rum hangover. It's not pleasant. Sunlight streams through a small window. You estimate it's mid-morning. You've slept longer than usual, but you don't feel rested. Alcohol doesn't provide quality sleep. It just provides unconsciousness. You stumble out of the boarding house and into the street. Tortuga looks less romantic in the daylight. The buildings are shabby and poorly maintained. Garbage litters the streets. The smell of rotting fish and human waste is overwhelming. This is poverty and desperation dressed up as adventure. You find Mary at a food stall near the harbour. She's eating what appears to be fish, stew and bread. Actual fresh food instead of hardtack and salted pork. "You look like death warmed over," Mary observes as you approach. "First hangover?" You nod carefully. Moving your head too quickly makes the pain worse. "Eat something," she advises. "Food will help settle your stomach. And drink water. Lots of water. Dehydration makes everything worse." You order fish stew from the vendor. It costs half a piece of 8, which seems expensive until you taste it. Fresh fish, vegetables, and herbs create flavors you'd forgotten existed after weeks of preserved ship food. Your stomach initially rebels against the rich taste, but gradually accepts the nourishment. "What's the plan for today?" you ask between careful spoonfuls. "Shopping," Mary replies. "We need personal supplies. Soap if we can find any. Clean clothes, maybe some fresh fruit to prevent scurvy. Then tonight we'll try a different tavern. The Salty Dog has better entertainment than the Faithful Bride." You spend the morning visiting various shops and stalls. Everything is expensive because Tortuga has a captive market. Pirates need supplies and have limited options for where to buy them. Merchants take advantage by charging premium prices for basic goods. Soap costs 1 piece of 8 for a small bar. In your modern life, You could buy a dozen bars for the same relative cost. But in 1700, soap is a luxury item. Many pirates go months without bathing because they can't afford soap or don't have access to fresh water for washing. You buy the soap anyway. Being clean feels like a necessity, even though it's technically optional. You also purchase a fresh shirt to replace the one that's been stained with blood and sweat from your first battle. The new shirt costs 2 pieces of 8, which is almost half your money. But wearing clean clothes improves your morale significantly. Fresh fruit is available from vendors who grow it on the island. Oranges, limes, and mangoes provide vitamins that prevent scurvy and other nutritional diseases. You buy several pieces of fruit and eat them immediately. The sweet, tangy flavors are incredible after weeks of bland ship food. Save some fruit for the voyage, Mary advises. Fresh food doesn't last long at sea, but every day you can delay scurvy is worth it. The afternoon is spent exploring more of Tortuga. The island is essentially one large pirate economy. Everything revolves around serving the needs of ship crews. Blacksmiths repair weapons and tools. Carpenters fix damaged ships. Sailmakers create and mend canvas. Doctors treat injuries and diseases with whatever primitive medical knowledge is available. You visit a doctor's shop out of curiosity. The interior is disturbing. Shelves lined with bottles containing various liquids and powders, surgical instruments that look more like torture devices. A human skeleton hanging in the corner for anatomical reference. Medical knowledge in 1700 is extremely limited. Most treatments are based on superstition rather than science. "What brings you here?" the doctor asks. He's an older man with shaky hands and bloodshot eyes. "Injury? Disease? Preventive treatment?" "Just looking around," you reply. He laughs. "Smart approach. My treatments kill almost as many patients as they cure. But sometimes desperate situations require desperate measures. Pirate life tends to create plenty of desperate situations." You examine some of his medical tools, a bone saw for amputations, forceps for removing bullets or arrows, needles for stitching wounds. Everything is crude and appears to have been used many times without proper cleaning. Infection is probably more dangerous than the original injuries in most cases. "What's the most common injury you treat?" you ask. "Sword wounds," he replies immediately. "Cuts on arms and hands from blade fighting." Most pirates never learn proper sword technique. They just swing sharp metal and hope for the best. Results in a lot of defensive wounds when people try to block with their hands instead of their weapons. This makes sense based on your own experience. Yesterday's battle was chaotic and clumsy. Nobody fought like the elegant swordsman in movies. Real combat is desperate improvisation with sharp objects. Second most common is gunshot wounds, the doctor continues. Pistols are inaccurate and unreliable, but they're still popular because they're intimidating. Problem is, pirates shoot each other almost as often as they shoot enemies. Alcohol and firearms don't mix well. You leave the doctor's shop feeling grateful that you haven't needed medical treatment yet. Based on what you've seen, it's better to avoid injury entirely than to rely on 17th century medicine. Evening arrives and your group heads to the Salty Dog Tavern. It's larger than the Faithful Bride and slightly more upscale. The floors are cleaner, the air is less smoky. The clientele appears to have more money and better hygiene. Relatively speaking, entertainment tonight includes a man with a fiddle playing sea shanties and folk songs. The music is lively and helps create a festive atmosphere. Pirates are singing along, badly but enthusiastically. Some are dancing with the tavern wenches. Others are gambling at cards or dice games. You order rum again, but pace yourself more carefully. Last night's hangover taught you about the importance of moderation. The rum still burns, but you're getting accustomed to the sensation. Your tolerance is building slowly. A card game starts at your table. The stakes are small, just a few coins per hand. Thomas deals cards for a game called piquet, which involves comparing hands and betting on the outcome. The rules are complex, and you don't understand them completely. But watching is educational. "Care to join the game?" asks a pirate you don't recognize. He's well dressed by Tortuga standards, with a clean coat and polished boots. His weapons appear to be high quality. Either he's very successful at piracy, or he's not actually a pirate. I don't know how to play, you admit. Easy to learn, he insists. I'll teach you. Just put down a coin and I'll explain as we go. Mary catches your eye and shakes her head slightly. This is a warning. The well-dressed stranger is probably a professional gambler who preys on inexperienced players. Learning to play cards from someone who makes money cheating at cards is not a wise investment. Maybe later. You decline politely. The stranger shrugs and moves on to find other potential victims. Professional gamblers are common in pirate ports. They make their living by separating drunk sailors from their money through rigged games and superior skill. Most pirates are not particularly intelligent or educated. They're easy targets for sophisticated con artists. Good instincts, Mary comments. That man's been here all 3 times we've visited Tortuga. Never seen him on a ship. Never seen him do any work. But he always has money and nice clothes. That tells you everything you need to know about how he earns his living. The evening continues with music, drinking, and storytelling. You learn more about pirate culture and values. Honor matters, but it's defined differently than in legitimate society. Keeping your word to fellow pirates is essential. Betraying crew members is unforgivable. But lying to, stealing from, or killing non-pirates is not only acceptable but encouraged. Courage is highly valued, but stupidity is not. Pirates respect crew members who fight bravely during battles, but they have no patience for people who take unnecessary risks or endanger others through poor judgment. The line between courage and stupidity is often thin, but pirates have become expert at recognizing the difference. Skill earns respect and better treatment. Pirates who can navigate, repair ships, tend wounds, or fight effectively are treated well by their crews. Unskilled crew members are expendable and often treated accordingly. This creates strong incentives for rapid learning and competence development. What skills should I focus on learning? You ask Thomas during a quiet moment. Navigation, he replies immediately. Good navigators are always in demand. Ships need people who can read stars, use compass, and calculate position. It's dangerous knowledge, though. If you become too valuable, other crews might try to kidnap you. This is an interesting problem. Developing valuable skills increases your survival chances with your current crew, but it also makes you a target for recruitment by other crews, sometimes violent recruitment. What about fighting skills? Important, but harder to develop quickly. Sword fighting takes years to master. Pistol shooting takes practice and ammunition, both of which are expensive. Better to focus on skills that don't require killing people to prove your competence. The tavern begins emptying as the night progresses. Pirates return to their ships or boarding houses. Some are carried out by friends after drinking too much. Others are involved in fights that end with injuries or death. Violence is a constant presence in pirate society. You return to your boarding house room, feeling more confident about pirate life. You've survived 3 days without serious injury or major mistakes. You're learning the social rules and practical skills needed for survival. Tomorrow is your last day in port before returning to sea. Your final day in Tortuga is spent preparing for the return voyage. You purchase additional supplies with your remaining money. More soap, extra fruit, and a small knife for eating and general utility. The knife costs 1 piece of 8, leaving you nearly broke, but having your own blade feels important for both practical and psychological reasons. The ship is resupplied with fresh water, food, and materials for repairs. Barrels of water are loaded into the hold. Sacks of grain and beans provide variety from the usual hardtack diet. Rope, canvas, and lumber allow for fixing damage that inevitably occurs during voyages. New crew members are recruited to replace those lost during recent battles or to disease. Pirate crews have high turnover rates. People die, desert, or are kicked off ships regularly. Maintaining adequate crew size requires constant recruitment. 3 new pirates join your crew. One is a former merchant sailor who was mistreated by his previous captain. Another is an escaped indentured servant who faced years of unpaid labor if he stayed on land. The third is a young woman disguised as a man, following Mary's example of using piracy to escape limited options for females in colonial society. "Welcome aboard," Black Bart addresses the new recruits. "You've joined one of the most successful pirate crews in the Caribbean. We follow the pirate code strictly. Anyone who violates crew rules gets marooned on a deserted island. Anyone who steals from crewmates gets hanged. Anyone who shows cowardice during battle gets flogged. Anyone who endangers the ship through stupidity gets thrown overboard. Other than that, you'll be treated fairly and get your share of any loot we acquire." The Pirate Code is a set of rules that govern behavior aboard pirate ships. Different crews have different codes, but common elements include rules about division of loot, treatment of prisoners, conduct during shore leave, and punishment for various offences. The codes help maintain order and discipline among groups of violent, desperate people living in close quarters. Your ship leaves Tortuga at dawn on the fourth day. The process of departing port is almost as complex as arriving. The anchor must be raised, which requires coordinated effort from multiple crew members. Sails must be unfurled and positioned to catch the wind. The ship must be steered carefully through coral reefs and around other vessels. You're assigned to help raise the anchor. This involves turning a large wheel called a capstan that winds rope attached to the anchor chain. The work is exhausting. The anchor weighs several hundred pounds and must be lifted from the sea bottom through dozens of feet of water. But many hands make the work manageable. "Heave away, you dogs," Black Bart shouts. "Put your backs into it." The anchor slowly rises from the water. You can feel every pound of its weight through the capstan. Your muscles burn from the effort. Sweat pours down your face despite the early morning coolness. But gradually, the anchor reaches the surface and is secured to the ship's side. The ship begins moving as wind fills the sails. You feel a sense of accomplishment at participating in the departure process. You're becoming a functional member of the crew rather than just dead weight taking up space. The next few days pass in routine ship maintenance and sailing duties. You scrub decks, repair rigging, and help adjust sails as wind conditions change. The work is hard, but you're getting stronger and more skilled. Your hands are developing calluses that protect against rope burns. Your balance improves as you adapt to the ship's constant motion. Food returns to the usual hardtack and salted pork. But the fresh fruit from Tortuga provides occasional variety and important nutrition. You ration it carefully to make it last as long as possible. Each piece of fruit represents several more days before scurvy becomes a serious concern. Water rationing resumes as well. 1 cup per day of increasingly stale liquid. You learn to drink slowly and savor every drop. Dehydration is a constant concern in the Caribbean heat, but water is too precious to waste on comfort. On your 7th day back at sea, another ship is spotted on the horizon. Black Bart examines it through his spyglass and determines it's a Spanish treasure galleon sailing from Mexico towards Spain. These ships carry gold and silver from New World mines back to Europe. They're heavily defended but incredibly valuable targets. "All hands on deck," Black Bart commands. "Prepare for battle. This will be your second pirate raid. You know what to expect now. Violence, chaos, and the possibility of death or serious injury. But you also know you can survive combat if you stay calm and follow orders. Experience builds confidence, even in dangerous situations. The Spanish galleon is larger than your ship and carries more cannons. But it's also slower and less maneuverable. Pirate ships are built for speed and agility rather than heavy firepower. The strategy is to attack quickly before the galleon can bring its superior weapons to bear effectively. Your ship approaches from an angle that limits the galleon's ability to fire its cannons. This is a standard pirate tactic called crossing the T. By positioning perpendicular to the enemy ship's length, you minimize their firepower while maximizing your own. "Load the cannons," Thomas shouts to the gun crews. Cannons in 1700 are muzzle-loading weapons that require significant time and effort to prepare. Gunpowder must be measured and poured down the barrel. A cannonball must be loaded and rammed into place. A fuse must be prepared and lit when ready to fire. The entire process takes several minutes and requires coordination between multiple crew members. You're assigned to help carry cannonballs from storage to the gun crews. Cannonballs are solid iron spheres that weigh about 12 pounds each. Carrying them while the ship rocks and pitches is difficult work. But moving ammunition quickly can determine the outcome of naval battles. The Spanish galleon fires first. Several cannons discharge simultaneously, sending cannonballs whistling over your ship. Most miss completely. One ball punches a hole through the mainsail. Another crashes into the ship's railing and sends wooden splinters flying like shrapnel. "Return fire," Black Bart orders. Your ship's cannons respond with their own volley. The sound is deafening. The deck shakes from the recoil. Smoke fills the air and burns your eyes. One of your cannonballs strikes the galleon's hull and creates a visible hole near the waterline. Naval artillery in this era is wildly inaccurate. Ships are moving targets on an unstable platform. Cannons have no sophisticated aiming mechanisms. Success depends more on luck than skill. Most shots miss completely. Direct hits are rare and celebrated accordingly. The battle continues for almost an hour. Both ships fire repeatedly while maneuvering for better positions. Your ship gradually gains the advantage through superior sailing ability. The galleon is forced into a defensive position where most of its cannons can't fire effectively. "Prepare to board," Black Bart commands when the ships are close enough. This is the moment you've been dreading. Hand-to-hand combat with the galleon's crew. Spanish sailors are well-trained and well-equipped. They'll fight desperately to protect their cargo and their lives. Many people will die in the next few minutes. You're given a cutlass again. It feels more familiar now than during your first battle. You've practiced sword movements during quiet moments at sea. Your technique is still poor, but you're no longer completely helpless with a blade. Grappling hooks secure the ships together. Pirates prepare to jump across the gap between vessels. You position yourself near Mary, hoping her experience will help keep you alive during the fighting. "Remember what I taught you," she says quietly. "Stay calm. Watch for opportunities. Don't try to be a hero. Heroes die young in this business." The first pirates leap onto the galleon's deck. Fighting erupts immediately. Spanish sailors are ready for the boarding attempt. They meet the pirates with sword and pike, creating a chaotic melee in the confined space of the ship's deck. You jump across and land hard on the galleon's deck. The surface is different from your ship. Cleaner, better maintained, more expensive materials in the construction. This is a wealthy ship carrying valuable cargo. A Spanish sailor charges at you with a boarding pike. It's a long wooden pole with a sharp metal point. He's trying to impale you before you can get close enough to use your sword. You dodge to the side and swing your cutlass at the pike's wooden shaft. The blade cuts partway through the wood but doesn't break it completely. The sailor reverses his grip and swings the pike like a club. The wooden shaft strikes your shoulder hard enough to knock you off balance. You stumble backward and nearly fall. He raises the pike for another strike that will probably crack your skull. Mary appears behind the sailor and drives her cutlass into his back. He drops the pike and falls forward. Blood spreads across the deck around his body. You're alive because Mary killed someone to protect you. This creates a debt you'll need to repay someday. "Stay focused," she shouts over the sounds of battle. "More enemies coming!" The fighting spreads across the entire ship. Pirates and Spanish sailors are engaged in dozens of individual combats. Some fights are sword against sword. Others involve improvised weapons like belaying pins, rope, and broken bottles. Everything becomes a potential weapon when people are fighting for their lives. You move through the battle, trying to avoid unnecessary risks, while still contributing to the crew's effort. You help other pirates when they're outnumbered. You watch for enemies approaching from behind. You try to stay alive without getting anyone else killed through your inexperience. The Spanish crew fights bravely but is gradually overwhelmed. Pirates have more experience with violence and fewer scruples about using it. They also have less to lose. Spanish sailors are defending their ship and cargo. Pirates are fighting for the money they need to survive. After 20 minutes of combat, the Spanish captain surrenders. Most of his crew is dead or wounded. Continuing to fight will just result in more casualties without changing the outcome. Surrender at least offers the possibility that some survivors will be allowed to live. "Quarter granted," Black Bart announces. "Lay down your weapons." The surviving Spanish sailors drop their swords and raise their hands. Pirates immediately begin securing prisoners and searching for valuable cargo. This is the profitable part of piracy. Everything up to this point was just necessary violence to reach this moment. You help search the ship's cargo hold. The space is filled with wooden crates and leather bags. Some contain trade goods like spices, silk, and tobacco. Others contain gold and silver coins. A few hold precious stones and jewelry. This is exactly the kind of treasure that makes piracy profitable despite its risks. "Look at this," Thomas calls from across the hold. He's opened a crate filled with silver bars. Each bar weighs several pounds and represents more wealth than most people see in their entire lives. "There's enough silver here to buy our own ship." The looting process takes several hours. Everything valuable must be identified, evaluated, and transferred to your ship. Heavy items like silver bars require multiple people to move safely. Fragile items like jewelry must be handled carefully to avoid damage that reduces their value. You help carry a bag of gold coins. It's surprisingly heavy for its size. Gold is a dense metal that packs significant value into small volumes. This single bag probably contains more money than you could earn in years of legitimate employment. If you had access to legitimate employment, how much is all this worth? You ask Mary while loading treasure onto your ship. "Hard to say exactly," she replies. "Depends on what we can get for it when we sell it, but probably enough to keep the entire crew comfortable for several months. Assuming we don't lose it to other pirates or colonial authorities before we can convert it to usable currency." This raises an important point about pirate economics. Stolen goods are only valuable if you can convert them to money you can actually spend. Selling pirate loot requires finding buyers who don't ask questions about ownership. These buyers typically offer prices well below market value because they're taking legal risks by dealing with pirates. The Spanish galleon is left adrift after being thoroughly looted. Its crew is given a small boat and directions to the nearest Spanish colony. Whether they survive the journey depends on weather, navigation skills, and luck. Pirates rarely kill prisoners unnecessarily, but they also don't provide extensive assistance to people they've just robbed. Your ship sails away from the scene loaded with treasure. The crew is in high spirits because successful raids mean money, food, and supplies for everyone. But the celebration is tempered by the knowledge that carrying valuable cargo makes you a target for other pirates and naval patrols. "Where do we sell this loot?" you ask Thomas during the victory dinner of fresh food taken from the Spanish ship. "Port Royal," he replies. "Biggest market for questionable goods in the Caribbean. Merchants there don't ask many questions about where merchandise comes from. As long as you have gold to spend, they're happy to do business." Port Royal is Jamaica's main commercial port. It's also one of the most corrupt and violent cities in the Caribbean. Pirates, smugglers, and other criminals operate openly because local authorities are either bribed or intimidated into cooperation. It's the perfect place to convert stolen goods into usable currency. The voyage to Port Royal takes 5 days. During this time, you continue learning pirate skills and customs. Navigation becomes your focus based on Thomas's advice. You learn to read stars, use a compass, and estimate position based on speed and direction of travel. These skills are valuable and portable. Even if you leave piracy, navigation knowledge could help you find employment on legitimate ships. Mary teaches you more advanced sword fighting techniques during quiet periods. Proper stance, basic attacks and defenses, and how to move efficiently in combat. Your skills improve gradually with practice. You'll never be an expert swordsman, but you're becoming competent enough to survive most fights if you stay calm and focused. The ship's hierarchy becomes clearer as you gain experience. Black Bart is the ultimate authority on all decisions. His word is law, and questioning his orders can result in severe punishment. Below him, experienced crew members like Mary and Thomas have informal leadership roles based on their skills and knowledge. New crew members like yourself have no authority, but can earn respect through competence and reliability. Discipline is maintained through a combination of fear and mutual dependence. Everyone knows that crew solidarity is essential for survival. Betraying your shipmates means losing the protection and support that keeps you alive in a dangerous world. But the threat of violence from the captain ensures that conflicts don't escalate beyond manageable levels. Food improves significantly with supplies taken from the Spanish galleon. Fresh bread, cheese, wine, and preserved fruits provide variety and nutrition missing from the usual pirate diet. Your health and energy improve noticeably with better food. Proper nutrition makes every aspect of ship life easier to tolerate. Port Royal appears on the horizon at sunset on the 5th day. The city is larger than Tortuga and more prosperous. Buildings are taller and better constructed. The harbour is filled with ships from many nations. Commerce flows through Port Royal from across the Caribbean and beyond. Remember, Black Bart addresses the crew as the ship approaches port. We're here to sell our goods and resupply for the next voyage. Anyone who gets arrested is on their own. Anyone who reveals information about our activities to authorities will be hunted down and killed. Anyone who tries to cheat the crew out of their share will wish they'd never been born. Other than that, enjoy yourselves. The process of entering Port Royal is more complex than Tortuga because the harbour is busier and more regulated. Harbour pilots guide ships to appropriate docking areas. Customs officials inspect cargo and collect fees. Port authorities maintain at least the appearance of legal oversight, even though corruption is widespread. Your ship is assigned a berth near other questionable vessels. Pirates, smugglers, and slave traders dock in the same area because legitimate merchants prefer to avoid association with obviously criminal enterprises. But everyone does business together when money is involved. First priority is converting our loot to currency, Black Bart explains to senior crew members. Mary will handle negotiations with buyers. Thomas will oversee security during transactions. Everyone else will maintain the ship and prepare for our next voyage. You're assigned to help guard the treasure during sales negotiations. This involves standing near the cargo with visible weapons and looking intimidating enough to discourage theft attempts. Given your limited experience with violence, looking intimidating requires significant acting ability. The first buyer is a merchant named Samuel, who specializes in precious metals and gems. He examines the Spanish silver bars with expert attention to detail, testing purity, weighing individual pieces, calculating total value based on current market prices. High-quality silver, he admits after thorough examination. Recent casting, minimal impurities. I can offer 60% of London market value for the entire lot. This seems like a low offer, but Mary accepts without argument. Pirate loot always sells below market value because buyers are taking legal risks and providing services that aren't available through legitimate channels. 60% is actually a reasonable price for stolen silver. The gold coins require separate evaluation because they're from different mints and time periods. Some are Spanish pieces of 8. Others are Portuguese cruzados. A few are English guineas, probably stolen from other pirates. Each type has a different purity and value that must be assessed individually. Mixed lot, Samuel observes while sorting the coins. Mostly good quality, but some are clipped or filed. I'll need to test each type separately before making an offer. Coin clipping is a common form of fraud, where small amounts of precious metal are shaved from the edges of coins. The coins remain usable currency, but they contain less gold or silver than their face value indicates. Detecting clipped coins requires careful examination and testing. The evaluation process takes several hours. Samuel uses scales, acid tests, and visual inspection to determine the value of each coin type. The work is methodical and precise. His reputation depends on accurate assessments that satisfy both buyers and sellers. Final offer for the gold, Samuel announces after completing his analysis. 400 pieces of 8 for the entire collection. Mary accepts this offer as well. The total payment for silver and gold is approximately 800 pieces of 8. Divided among the crew, this represents several months of income for each pirate, enough money to live comfortably during shore leave and purchase necessary supplies for future voyages. Jewelry and gems require consultation with a different specialist. These items are harder to evaluate and more difficult to sell because they're easily recognizable and often associated with specific victims. But they're also extremely valuable if you can find the right buyer. Risky merchandise, admits the gem dealer after examining the jewelry collection. Beautiful pieces, but clearly from wealthy Spanish families. Someone will be looking for these items. I can offer 30% of the estimated value, and that's only because I have buyers who don't ask questions. 30% seems extremely low, but Mary considers the offer carefully. Jewelry is difficult to sell and dangerous to keep. Unlike coins or metal bars, these pieces are unique and traceable. Holding them too long increases the risk of being connected to specific robberies. We'll take the deal, Mary decides. Better to convert them quickly than risk getting caught with identifiable stolen goods. The gem dealer pays 200 pieces of 8 for jewelry worth at least 700 on the legitimate market. But pirates rarely have access to legitimate markets. They must accept whatever prices underground dealers are willing to pay. Spices, silk, and other trade goods are sold to merchants who supply retail shops throughout the Caribbean. These items are less obviously stolen and command better prices. Buyers pay approximately 70% of market value because the goods are high quality and there's strong demand from local customers. The final tally from selling loot is over 1,000 pieces of 8. Divided among 15 crew members, each pirate receives approximately 70 pieces of 8. This is more money than most people in the Caribbean earn in an entire year. Successful piracy can be extremely profitable when everything goes well. Drinks are on me tonight, Black Bart announces after the money is distributed. We've earned a celebration. The crew heads to the Buccaneer's Rest, Port Royal's most famous pirate tavern. It's larger and more elaborate than anything in Tortuga. Multiple rooms, live music, gaming tables, and women who charge premium prices for their services. This is where successful pirates come to spend their money and enjoy themselves between voyages. You order rum, but this time you can afford the good stuff. Premium aged rum that doesn't burn your throat or make your eyes water. The difference in quality is remarkable. Good rum actually tastes pleasant instead of just providing alcohol content. To successful piracy, Jack raises his cup in a toast. And to crewmates who watch each other's backs. Everyone drinks. The rum goes down smoothly and warms your stomach without causing immediate nausea. You're beginning to understand why pirates develop reputations for heavy drinking. When you have money and limited entertainment options, alcohol becomes a primary source of pleasure. A card game starts at a nearby table. Unlike Tortuga, the players here appear to be legitimate gamblers rather than con artists preying on drunk sailors. The stakes are higher because everyone has more money to risk. But the games are probably honest, because cheating in Port Royal can result in violence from people who can afford to hire professional killers. Want to try your luck? Thomas asks, gesturing toward the card game. You consider the offer. You have money to risk, and gambling might be an interesting experience. But you also remember Mary's warning about professional gamblers in Tortuga. Even honest games can be expensive for inexperienced players. Maybe just watch for now, you decide. Learn the rules before risking my money. This turns out to be a wise choice. The card game involves complex betting strategies and psychological manipulation that would be difficult for a beginner to master quickly. Professional gamblers make their living by understanding odds and reading opponents. Competing against them without extensive experience is essentially donating money to people who are already wealthy. The evening continues with music, dancing, and storytelling. Port Royal attracts pirates from across the Caribbean, so the tavern is filled with people sharing tales from different crews and different adventures. Some stories are probably true, others are obviously fictional. All of them are entertaining when told by people who've lived dangerous lives. You learn about other pirate crews and their reputations. Some captains are known for treating their crews well and sharing loot fairly. Others are notorious for violence and exploitation. Some crews specialize in attacking specific types of ships or operating in particular regions. The pirate community is larger and more organized than you initially realized. What makes a successful pirate captain? You ask Mary during a quiet moment. Leadership skills, she replies immediately. A captain needs to make decisions quickly under pressure, maintain discipline without being unnecessarily brutal, navigate successfully between multiple dangers, and most importantly, keep the crew profitable enough that they don't mutiny and elect a new captain. Pirate captains are elected by their crews and can be removed by vote if they perform poorly. This democratic system ensures that leaders remain accountable to the people they command. But it also creates pressure to take risks that might not be wise from a long-term perspective. What happens to captains who get voted out? Depends on why they were removed, Mary explains. If they were just unlucky or made poor decisions, they usually get demoted to regular crew members. If they were caught stealing from the crew or treating people badly, they might get marooned or worse. Pirates don't tolerate leaders who betray their trust. This system of accountability is actually more democratic than most legitimate governments in 1700. Colonial authorities and naval officers answer to distant monarchs who never face the consequences of their decisions. Pirate captains answer directly to the people affected by their leadership. The tavern gradually empties as the night progresses. Some pirates return to their ships. Others rent rooms in local boarding houses. A few are too drunk to move and sleep where they fall. The atmosphere becomes calmer and more intimate as the crowd thins out. You decide to return to your ship rather than spend money on lodging. The boarding house fees in Port Royal are expensive, and the ship's hammock is adequate for sleeping. Plus, staying aboard ensures you won't miss the ship if departure plans change unexpectedly. The walk back to the harbour takes you through Port Royal's streets at night. The city is still active despite the late hour. Merchants are loading cargo for early morning departures. Women are negotiating with customers for various services. Guards are patrolling to maintain whatever order exists in this chaotic place. You reach your ship without incident and climb aboard. Most of the crew is still ashore enjoying their money and freedom. Only a few people remain on board to guard the vessel and maintain basic security. Ships in port are vulnerable to theft, sabotage, and other criminal activities. Your hammock feels comfortable compared to the hard wooden chairs in the tavern. The ship rocks gently in the calm harbour water. The sounds of the city provide a distant background noise that's less intrusive than the constant wind and waves of open ocean sailing. You fall asleep thinking about how much your life has changed in just a few weeks. You've participated in battles, lived through dangerous conditions, and earned more money than you've ever possessed before. Piracy is brutal and risky, but it's also provided opportunities and experiences that would be impossible in conventional society. You wake up at dawn to the sound of crew members returning from their night ashore. Most of them appear to have spent their money on alcohol and entertainment. Some are nursing hangovers. Others are still drunk from the previous evening. A few show signs of having been in fights. "Good morning, sunshine," Jack calls out cheerfully despite obvious intoxication. "Ready for another day in paradise?" You climb out of your hammock and survey the returning crew. Everyone seems to be accounted for and nobody appears seriously injured. This is actually a successful outcome for a night of shore leave in Port Royal. The city's reputation for violence is well deserved. Black Bart emerges from his cabin looking remarkably composed for someone who was buying drinks for the entire crew last night. Either he has exceptional alcohol tolerance, or he maintained more self-control than his crew members. "We sail at noon," he announces. "Anyone who's not aboard gets left behind. We have information about a Spanish convoy leaving Cartagena tomorrow. If we position ourselves correctly, we can intercept them in 3 days. This means your shore leave in Port Royal is ending after just one night. But piracy operates on unpredictable schedules determined by opportunity rather than convenience. When targets present themselves, successful pirates move quickly to take advantage. The morning is spent preparing for departure. Fresh water and supplies are loaded aboard. Equipment is checked and repaired as needed. Crew members sober up and focus on their duties. The transition from shore leave to operational readiness happens remarkably quickly. You help load barrels of fresh water into the ship's hold. Each barrel weighs several hundred pounds when full. Moving them requires coordinated effort from multiple crew members. The work is exhausting, but fresh water is essential for survival during long voyages. The ship departs Port Royal exactly at noon. Black Bart's timing is precise because successful piracy requires disciplined execution of plans. Ships that arrive late at intercept points miss their targets. Ships that arrive early risk detection by enemy scouts. The voyage to intercept the Spanish convoy takes you through some of the most beautiful waters in the Caribbean. Crystal clear blue ocean stretches to the horizon in every direction. Flying fish leap from wave to wave. Dolphins occasionally swim alongside the ship, seemingly curious about the strange wooden creature moving through their domain. But the beauty masks constant danger. These same waters contain coral reefs that can tear holes in ship hulls. Hurricanes develop without warning and sink vessels caught in open ocean. Pirates compete for the same targets and sometimes fight each other for access to profitable shipping lanes. Spanish convoys travel in groups for protection, Thomas explains while you help adjust the sails. Usually 3 to 5 ships. 1 or 2 carry treasure. The others provide escort and defense. Our job is to identify which ships have the valuable cargo and attack those specifically. This requires intelligence gathering and tactical planning that goes far beyond simple robbery. Successful piracy involves reconnaissance, logistics, and strategic thinking. Pirates who survive and prosper are often more skilled than the naval officers they fight against. How do we tell which ships carry treasure? Several ways, Thomas replies. Treasure ships sit lower in the water because gold and silver are heavy. They have stronger escorts positioned around them. They often fly different flags or sail in specific formations. Experienced pirates learn to read these signs from a distance. Your ship reaches the intercept position 2 days later. The location is a narrow passage between islands where Spanish ships must sail close to shore to avoid dangerous reefs. This geographic bottleneck forces convoys into predictable routes that pirates can exploit. Convoy spotted, calls the lookout from the crow's nest. Black Bart climbs the rigging with his spyglass to observe the approaching ships. This requires significant physical skill and courage. The crow's nest is 70 feet above the deck. Climbing there while the ship rocks in ocean, swells demands excellent balance and strong arms. 5 ships, he reports after several minutes of observation. 2 escorts, 1 supply vessel, and 2 treasure galleons. Heavy cargo based on how low they're sitting in the water. This could be our biggest score yet. The crew prepares for battle with practiced efficiency. Cannons are loaded and positioned. Weapons are distributed and checked. Boarding equipment is prepared. Everyone knows their role and executes it without confusion or delay. This will be different from our previous battles, Mary warns you while checking her sword and pistol. Convoy escorts are warships with trained military crews. They're not merchant sailors trying to defend cargo. They're professional soldiers whose job is killing pirates. The tactical situation is more complex than previous raids. 5 enemy ships versus 1 pirate vessel means you're outnumbered. But pirate ships are faster and more maneuverable than heavily loaded treasure galleons. The strategy is to attack quickly, grab what you can, and escape before the escorts can coordinate an effective defense. We'll target the smaller treasure ship first, Black Bart explains to the crew. Hit it fast, take what we can carry, and run before the escorts can surround us. Anyone who tries to be greedy and grab extra loot will get us all killed. Your ship approaches the convoy at maximum speed. The Spanish ships detect the threat and begin forming defensive positions. The escorts move to protect the treasure ships. Signal flags communicate between vessels to coordinate their response. The first exchange of cannon fire begins when your ship comes within range of the Spanish guns. Their accuracy is better than previous encounters because these are military gunners with extensive training. Several cannonballs pass dangerously close to your ship. "Return fire," Black Bart commands. Your ship's cannons respond with their own volley. The range is still too great for accurate shooting, but the psychological effect is important. Both sides are now committed to battle. There's no possibility of retreat or negotiation. The Spanish treasure ship you're targeting tries to escape by sailing toward the protection of its escorts, but it's heavily loaded and slow. Your ship gains ground steadily, despite the danger from enemy cannons. A Spanish cannonball punches through your ship's hull just above the waterline. Wood splinters fly across the deck like deadly rain. One piece cuts your cheek and draws blood. Another embeds itself in the mast inches from your head. "Damage report," Black Bart shouts. "Hull breach, but above water level," someone responds. "We can sail, but we're taking on some water." This is exactly the kind of damage that makes piracy so dangerous. Ships are fragile wooden structures held together by rope and tar. A few well-placed cannonballs can sink a vessel in minutes. Every battle risks total loss of ship and crew. Your ship closes to boarding range despite the damage. Grappling hooks secure the vessels together. Pirates prepare to jump across the gap between ships. The Spanish crew prepares to repel boarders with swords, pikes, and pistols. "Board them," Black Bart screams. Pirates leap onto the treasure ship's deck. You follow, landing hard on wooden planks slick with spray from recent cannon fire. The Spanish crew meets the attack with disciplined resistance. These aren't frightened merchant sailors. They're soldiers trained for exactly this situation. A Spanish marine charges at you with a boarding pike. The weapon has a longer reach than your cutlass, giving him a significant advantage. He thrusts the pointed tip toward your chest, trying to impale you before you can get close enough to use your sword. You dodge to the side and grab the pike's wooden shaft. Both of you struggle for control of the weapon. He's stronger and more experienced, but you're desperate and fighting for your life. The struggle continues for several seconds before Mary appears and drives her cutlass into the marine's neck. "Stay close," she yells over the sounds of battle. "Watch my back and I'll watch yours." The fighting spreads across the treasure ship's deck. Pirates and Spanish soldiers engage in dozens of individual combats. The discipline and training of the Spanish crew makes this battle more difficult than previous raids. Every enemy you face is skilled and determined. You move through the battle staying near Mary and helping where possible. Your sword skills have improved with practice, but you're still not capable of winning fights against trained soldiers. Your value is in supporting more experienced fighters and watching for threats they might miss. The pirate crew gradually gains the upper hand through superior numbers and experience with this type of combat. Spanish soldiers are trained for formal battles with organized tactics. Pirates specialize in chaotic close quarters, fighting where individual skill matters more than formation discipline. After 15 minutes of intense combat, the Spanish resistance collapses. Most of their crew is dead or wounded. The survivors surrender rather than continue a hopeless fight. Your crew immediately begins searching for treasure while guards watch the prisoners. The treasure ship's cargo hold contains exactly what pirates dream about finding: chests full of gold coins, bars of silver stacked like cordwood, bags of precious gems and jewelry, raw materials from New World mines destined for Spanish treasuries. "Look at this!" Thomas calls from across the hold. He's opened a chest containing more gold than you've ever seen in one place. "There's enough treasure here to buy our own fleet." But there's no time to properly evaluate or count the loot. The Spanish escort ships are approaching rapidly. Every minute spent on the captured ship increases the risk of being trapped and overwhelmed by superior numbers. "Take what you can carry," Black Bart orders. "Leave the rest. We need to get out of here before those warships arrive." Pirates grab bags of coins and small valuable items that can be moved quickly. Heavy silver bars and large chests must be left behind because there's not enough time to transfer them safely. This is one of the fundamental frustrations of piracy. You often discover more treasure than you can steal. Your ship breaks away from the treasure galleon just as the Spanish escorts come within cannon range. Several shots are fired, but most miss because the range is still too great for accurate targeting. Your ship's superior speed allows it to escape before the escorts can close the distance. The retreat continues for several hours as Spanish ships pursue your vessel. Their warships are faster than treasure galleons, but still slower than your pirate ship. Gradually, the distance between vessels increases until the Spanish ships give up the chase. Damage assessment, Black Bart calls once the immediate danger has passed. The hull breach from the cannon strike is manageable but concerning. Water is entering the ship at a slow but steady rate. Repairs will be needed before the next battle, or the damage could become critical during rough weather. We can patch it temporarily, reports the ship's carpenter, but we'll need proper repairs in a friendly port. The wood around the hole is cracked and could give way if we take more damage in the same area. Despite the damage and the treasure left behind, the raid was successful. The loot recovered from the Spanish ship is worth several thousand pieces of eight. Divided among the crew, it represents months of comfortable living for everyone involved. Port Royal again. Black Bart decides after consulting his charts. We need proper repairs and a place to sell our latest acquisition. Plus the crew deserves another celebration after that performance. The voyage back to Port Royal takes 4 days. During this time, you help with temporary repairs to the hull breach. The work involves fitting wooden patches over the hole and sealing gaps with tar and oakum. It's skilled labor that requires understanding of ship construction and waterproofing techniques. Why did you choose this ship? You ask the carpenter while working on repairs. Didn't choose it, he replies. Was pressed into service by the Royal Navy 5 years ago. Spent 2 years on a man of war being treated like a slave. Officers beat crew members for minor infractions. Food was terrible. Pay was irregular. Desertion was punishable by death, but staying seemed worse than the risk of getting caught. Impressment is a common practice where naval authorities kidnap experienced sailors and force them to serve on warships. Colonial governments need crews for their vessels, but can't attract enough volunteers through legitimate recruitment. So they simply take people by force. How did you escape? Ship docked in Port Royal for repairs, he explains. I slipped away during shore leave and hid until they sailed without me. Joined Black Bart's crew a few months later. Piracy is dangerous, but at least it's voluntary, and the pay is better when we're successful. This story illustrates why many pirates are former naval sailors who were mistreated by legitimate authorities. Piracy offers freedom and fair treatment that's unavailable in colonial military service. The irony is that governments create their own enemies through harsh policies. The ship reaches Port Royal without further incident. The hull repairs hold throughout the voyage, but professional shipyard work will be needed for permanent fixes. Pirates must balance the cost of proper maintenance against the profits from successful raids. 3-day shore leave, Black Bart announces as the ship enters harbour. Repairs will take that long anyway. Same rules as before. Don't get arrested. Don't miss the ship. Don't reveal operational information to anyone. The crew divides their latest treasure according to the pirate code. Each member receives approximately 150 pieces of eight. Combined with money from previous raids, most crew members now have significant wealth by Caribbean standards. You've been a pirate for 6 weeks and accumulated more money than most people earn in several years. But you've also experienced violence, danger, and living conditions that would be considered primitive even by 17th century standards. The trade-offs are significant. Port Royal feels familiar now rather than exotic. You know which taverns serve the best food, which merchants offer fair prices, and which areas to avoid after dark. Experience has taught you to navigate the city's dangers and opportunities. What's next for us? You ask Mary while walking through the crowded streets. More of the same, she replies. Find targets, attack them, steal their cargo, sell the loot, and repeat. That's the pirate business model. Simple, but effective, as long as you survive long enough to enjoy the profits. Do you ever think about retiring? Mary laughs. Retiring to what? I'm a female pirate in 1700. There aren't many career options available to someone with my background. I could try to find a husband willing to overlook my past, but that seems unlikely. I could attempt legitimate employment, but women's wages are barely enough to survive. Piracy might be dangerous, but it's also the only path to real independence. This conversation highlights one of the brutal realities of this historical period. Social mobility is extremely limited. People born into poverty usually die in poverty. Women have few rights and fewer opportunities. Criminal enterprises often provide the only escape from predetermined social roles. Your group enters the Buccaneer's Rest Tavern for another evening of celebration. The atmosphere is festive because multiple pirate crews are in port simultaneously. Successful raids have put money in everyone's pockets and created a mood of optimism about future prospects. To the best crew in the Caribbean, Jack raises his cup in a toast. And to the Spanish treasure ships that keep us in business. Everyone drinks. The rum tastes better when you can afford the premium varieties. Success in piracy provides access to luxuries that would be impossible in legitimate employment. But those luxuries come at the cost of constant danger and uncertain future prospects. A stranger approaches your table during the celebration. He's well-dressed and appears prosperous, but his eyes are calculating in a way that suggests criminal connections. These types of people frequent pirate taverns looking for business opportunities. Gentlemen, he says with a slight bow, I represent certain interests that might have employment opportunities for experienced seafaring professionals. Perhaps we could discuss mutually beneficial arrangements. This is how pirate crews often find information about valuable targets. Criminal networks exist throughout the Caribbean to facilitate illegal commerce. Information brokers, corrupt officials, and dishonest merchants all profit by helping pirates locate and attack suitable victims. Black Bart joins the conversation after being summoned by the stranger. Negotiations take place in hushed tones that prevent eavesdropping by other patrons, but you can tell from body language that they're discussing significant business opportunities. What kind of work? Black Bart asks directly. A merchant convoy departing Kingston next week, the stranger replies. 3 ships carrying trade goods to European markets. Minimal escort because they're trying to avoid attention from naval patrols, rich cargo and weak defenses. What's your fee for this information? 10% of whatever you recover, the stranger answers. Payable only if the raid is successful. No success, no payment. That demonstrates my confidence in the intelligence. This seems like a reasonable arrangement. Information about target locations and cargo is valuable because it allows pirates to plan attacks efficiently. Random searching for victims wastes time and increases exposure to naval patrols. Black Bart accepts the deal after brief consideration. The handshake agreement is binding according to pirate customs. Violating such arrangements would damage the crew's reputation and make future cooperation with informants impossible. Kingston convoy in 6 days. Black Bart informs the crew after the stranger leaves. 3 targets, light escort, valuable cargo. We'll sail tomorrow and position ourselves for intercept. This news cuts your shore leave short, but nobody complains. Opportunities like this don't appear frequently. When reliable intelligence becomes available, successful pirates act quickly before other crews learn about the same targets. The evening continues with drinking and storytelling, but the mood shifts toward preparation rather than pure celebration. Crew members begin thinking about the upcoming raid and what they need to do to ensure success. Weapons are checked, equipment is evaluated, plans are discussed informally. This could be our biggest score yet, Thomas observes while examining his pistol. 3 ships means 3 times the normal loot. If everything goes well, we'll all be rich enough to retire. But you're beginning to understand that pirates rarely retire by choice. They continue raiding until they're killed, captured, or disabled by injury. The lifestyle is addictive because the profits are enormous when successful. But the risks accumulate over time, until eventual disaster becomes statistically inevitable. What happens to pirates who get too old to fight? You ask Mary. Some become informants or shore-based criminals, she replies. Others drink themselves to death with their accumulated wealth. A few try to go legitimate, but that rarely works because their reputations follow them. Most just keep raiding until something kills them. This is a sobering reminder that piracy is not a sustainable long-term career. The physical demands and constant dangers make it unsuitable for older people. But the skills and reputation developed through piracy don't transfer easily to legitimate employment. Your second night in Port Royal ends with a return to the ship. Most of the crew is aboard because departure is scheduled for early morning. The party atmosphere has been replaced by professional focus on the upcoming mission. You sleep fitfully in your hammock. Dreams mix memories of previous battles with anxieties about future dangers. 6 weeks of pirate life have changed your perspective on violence and risk. What once seemed terrifying now feels routine. But that habituation to danger might be the most dangerous development of all. The ship departs Port Royal at dawn. Repairs to the hull breach have been completed by skilled shipyard workers. The vessel is seaworthy and ready for another voyage. Fresh supplies have been loaded for the week-long journey to intercept the Kingston convoy. The weather is perfect for sailing. Steady winds and calm seas allow the ship to make excellent time toward the intercept point. Flying fish leap alongside the vessel. Dolphins play in the bow wave. The Caribbean shows its most beautiful face while hiding the dangers that lurk beneath the surface. You've become proficient at most routine ship duties. Sail handling, deck maintenance and cargo management no longer require constant supervision. Your hands have developed calluses that protect against rope burns. Your balance has adapted to the ship's constant motion. You're becoming a real pirate, Jack observes while you work together to adjust the rigging. A few more months, and you'll be as salty as the rest of us. This feels like a compliment, but it also represents a fundamental change in your identity. You're no longer an outsider trying to survive in an alien environment. You're becoming part of the pirate community, with all the benefits and costs that entails. The ship reaches the intercept position 2 days ahead of the convoy's expected arrival. This provides time to prepare thoroughly and position for maximum tactical advantage. The location is a shipping channel between Jamaica and the open Caribbean, where merchant vessels must pass to reach European markets. Perfect ambush spot, Black Bart observes while studying the charts. They'll have to sail close to these reefs to avoid the shoals on the other side. That limits their maneuvering room and forces them into our preferred attack position. Tactical planning for pirate raids involves understanding geography, weather patterns, and ship capabilities. Successful captains are skilled navigators who can predict enemy movements and position their forces advantageous. It's a complex intellectual challenge that goes far beyond simple violence. The convoy appears on schedule 2 days later. 3 merchant ships sailing in loose formation with a single escort vessel. The intelligence was accurate regarding numbers and protection. Now the question is whether the cargo information is equally reliable. Merchant ships are sitting low in the water, the lookout reports. Heavy cargo confirmed. This visual confirmation supports the informant's claims about valuable loot. Heavy ships are slow ships, which favors pirates in any combat situation. The tactical advantage seems clear, but experienced pirates know that unexpected complications can develop quickly. Your ship approaches the convoy at maximum speed. The element of surprise is crucial because it prevents the merchants from forming effective defensive positions. By the time they recognize the threat, it should be too late to escape or call for help. The escort vessel responds first to the pirate threat. It's a small warship with limited armament but professional crew. The captain positions his ship between the pirates and merchants while signaling for the cargo vessels to scatter. Ignore the escort, Black Bart commands. Go for the largest merchant ship. We'll grab what we can and get out before the warship can interfere effectively. This strategy prioritizes profit over combat. Fighting the escort vessel would be dangerous and unprofitable. Better to accept some risk from their cannons while focusing on the valuable targets that justify the entire operation. Cannon fire begins as soon as the ships come within range. The escort's gunners are skilled and several shots pass dangerously close to your vessel, but your ship's speed and maneuverability make it a difficult target for enemy artillery. Your ship's cannons return fire while closing distance to the largest merchant vessel. The merchant crew tries to defend themselves, but their weapons are limited and their combat experience is minimal. They're traders, not fighters. "Prepare to board!" Black Bart shouts as the ships draw together. Grappling hooks secure the vessels. Pirates prepare for another boarding action. You check your weapons and try to control the fear that always accompanies combat. Experience hasn't eliminated the terror, but it has taught you to function despite it. The boarding action proceeds quickly. Merchant sailors offer token resistance before surrendering. They're not soldiers and have no desire to die protecting someone else's cargo. The brief fight ends with minimal casualties on either side. "Search the hold," Black Bart orders. "Find the valuable cargo." Pirates spread throughout the captured ship looking for treasure. The hold contains exactly what the informant promised. Chests of silver coins, bags of precious gems, and trade goods worth substantial money in European markets. But time is limited because the escort vessel is positioning for attack. Its cannons can sink your ship if you remain stationary too long. The loading process must balance thoroughness against the need for quick escape. "Take the silver and gems," Black Bart commands. "Leave the trade goods. We need to move before that warship gets into position." Heavy chests of silver require multiple pirates to carry safely. Precious gems are lighter, but more valuable per unit weight. The selection process prioritizes items that provide maximum profit for minimum loading time. Your ship breaks away from the merchant vessel just as the escort comes within effective cannon range. Several shots are fired, but your ship's speed allows escape before serious damage occurs. The escort must choose between pursuing pirates or protecting the remaining merchant ships. The escort captain chooses to protect his charges rather than pursue your vessel. This allows clean escape, but means the other two merchant ships remain potential targets for future raids. Professional naval officers understand that protecting cargo is more important than seeking revenge. "Successful raid," Black Bart announces once the ships are safely separated. Everyone gets full shares according to the code. The crew celebrates another profitable venture. Each pirate will receive approximately 200 pieces of 8 from this raid. Combined with previous earnings, most crew members now possess wealth that would last for years if invested carefully. You help count and divide the loot according to pirate customs. The process is democratic and transparent. Everyone can see that the distribution is fair and follows the agreed-upon rules. This trust is essential for maintaining crew cohesion. "Where to next?" Thomas asks, while securing his share of the treasure. "Nassau," Black Bart replies. "We need a secure base for planning our next moves. Too many successful raids in the same area attracts naval attention. Time to relocate and find fresh hunting grounds." Nassau is the most famous pirate stronghold in the Caribbean. Located in the Bahamas, it provides a secure base where pirates can rest, resupply, and plan operations without interference from colonial authorities. It's essentially an independent pirate republic. The voyage to Nassau takes 5 days through some of the most dangerous waters in the Caribbean. Coral reefs and shallow banks can destroy ships that navigate carelessly. Pirates must balance the safety of familiar shipping lanes against the risk of encountering naval patrols. Your ship reaches Nassau without incident. The harbour is filled with pirate vessels from across the Caribbean, dozens of ships flying black flags or no flags at all. This is the closest thing to a pirate homeland that exists in 1700. "Welcome to Nassau," Mary says as the ship enters the harbour, the one place in the world where being a pirate is completely legal. Nassau is governed by pirate captains who've established their own laws and customs. Colonial authorities have no power here. Naval forces rarely attempt raids because the fortifications are strong and the defenders are numerous and experienced. The town itself is a fascinating mixture of civilization and lawlessness. Well-built houses stand next to ramshackle taverns. Sophisticated merchants conduct business alongside crude smugglers. Educated former naval officers share drinks with illiterate escaped slaves. This is what freedom looks like, Jack observes while walking through Nassau's streets. No kings, no judges, no authorities except what we create ourselves. Pure democracy in action. But you notice that Nassau's freedom comes with its own costs. Violence is common because there are no police to maintain order. Disputes are settled through combat, or the threat of combat. Justice depends on personal reputation and the willingness to defend yourself. Your crew finds lodging at a boarding house that caters to pirate crews. The accommodations are better than Port Royal because Nassau specializes in serving pirates rather than just tolerating them. Clean beds, decent food, and security for personal belongings. How long will we stay here? You ask Black Bart during dinner. Until we find our next opportunity, he replies. Nassau is where information flows about targets throughout the Caribbean. Ship movements, cargo manifests, escort schedules, everything a successful pirate needs to know. This makes Nassau more than just a safe harbor. It's the intelligence center for Caribbean piracy. Information gathering and strategic planning happen here before crews sail out to execute raids based on that intelligence. The following weeks in Nassau provide insight into the broader pirate community. You meet crews from different regions with different specialties. Some focus on Spanish treasure ships. Others prefer attacking slave traders. A few specialize in raiding colonial settlements rather than ships. Diversity is strength, explains a captain named Anne, whose crew includes former slaves, escaped indentured servants, and dismissed naval officers. Different backgrounds provide different skills and knowledge. My navigator is a former Spanish pilot. My gunner is an ex-Royal Navy artillery expert. My boarding specialist is an escaped slave who knows how to fight with anything. This diversity is one of piracy's most appealing features for marginalized people. Pirate crews are integrated in ways that legitimate society prohibits. Racial, national, and class distinctions matter less than competence and loyalty to the crew. But Nassau also reveals piracy's limitations and contradictions. The wealth accumulated through successful raids creates inequality even within the supposedly egalitarian pirate community. Successful captains live in mansions while ordinary crew members rent cheap rooms. Merit-based hierarchy can become as rigid as traditional social structures. What's your long-term plan? You ask Mary during a quiet conversation. Survival, she replies honestly. Everything else is secondary. I've saved enough money to live comfortably for several years if I stop piracy now. But where would I go? What would I do? Piracy has given me independence, but it's also cut me off from legitimate society. This is the fundamental paradox of pirate life. It provides freedom and opportunity unavailable elsewhere, but it also creates permanent exile from conventional society. Pirates can't easily return to normal life because their reputations and skills don't transfer to legitimate employment. After 3 weeks in Nassau, Black Bart announces the crew's next mission. A Spanish treasure fleet is departing Havana with the annual shipment of New World wealth to Spain. The convoy will include multiple treasure galleons with naval escorts, but the potential profits justify the increased risks. This is the big one, he explains to the assembled crew. More treasure than all our previous raids combined, but also more danger. The Spanish Navy takes treasure fleet security seriously. Anyone who's not prepared for serious fighting should leave now. Nobody leaves. The crew has developed confidence through successful operations and trust in Black Bart's leadership. Plus, the potential profits are too enormous to ignore. This could be the raid that makes everyone independently wealthy. Preparations for the treasure fleet raid take 2 weeks. Additional crew members are recruited to replace those lost to injury or desertion. Weapons are upgraded with the finest equipment available in Nassau. The ship receives thorough maintenance to ensure peak performance. This feels different. you observe to Thomas while helping load extra ammunition. Because it is different, he replies. We're moving up to the major leagues. Spanish treasure fleets are the ultimate target for Caribbean pirates. Success means wealth beyond imagination. Failure means death, or capture, and execution. The ship departs Nassau with a crew of 20 experienced pirates and enough supplies for a month at sea. The treasure fleet's route is known, but interception will require precise navigation and timing. Mistakes could result in missing the target entirely. The voyage to the intercept point takes 10 days through increasingly dangerous waters. Spanish naval patrols are more frequent near treasure fleet routes. Enemy warships could appear at any time and force combat under unfavorable conditions. Treasure fleet spotted, the lookout calls on the 10th day. The Spanish convoy is massive. 8 ships including 4 treasure galleons and 4 naval escorts. The escort vessels are proper warships with professional crews and heavy armament. This is exactly the kind of target that destroys pirate crews through overconfidence. We'll shadow them until nightfall, Black Bart decides after observing the convoy through his spyglass. Then attack the rearmost treasure ship under cover of darkness. Hit fast, grab what we can, and disappear before the escorts can respond. Night attacks are extremely dangerous because navigation and combat both become much more difficult in darkness, but they also provide advantages in terms of surprise and confusion. Enemy crews can't coordinate responses effectively when they can't see clearly. Your ship follows the treasure fleet at a distance throughout the day. The Spanish vessels maintain tight formation and constant vigilance. Their lookouts have certainly spotted your ship, but they're maintaining course rather than breaking formation to investigate. As sunset approaches, the final preparation for battle begins. Weapons are checked and distributed. Battle stations are assigned. Plans are reviewed to ensure everyone understands their role in the complex night attack. This is it, Mary says while strapping on her sword belt. The culmination of everything we've worked toward. Either we succeed beyond our wildest dreams, or we die trying. Darkness falls quickly in the Caribbean. Within minutes, the treasure fleet becomes a collection of moving lights on the Black Ocean. Navigation requires skill and courage that few pirates possess. But Black Bart has proven his competence through years of successful operations. Your ship approaches the convoy under cover of darkness. The plan is to attack the rearmost treasure galleon before the escorts can respond effectively. Speed and violence will overcome the numerical disadvantage, at least temporarily. Attack! Black Bart whispers harshly. Your ship emerges from the darkness like a predator striking its prey. Grappling hooks secure the vessels before the Spanish crew fully understands what's happening. Pirates swarm onto the treasure ship's deck in overwhelming numbers. The Spanish crew fights desperately but is caught completely off guard. Night combat favors attackers who've planned their assault carefully. Within minutes, the treasure ship is under pirate control, and the real work begins. The cargo hold contains wealth beyond imagination. Chests filled with gold coins from Mexico and Peru, bars of silver stacked floor to ceiling, precious gems and jewelry worth more than entire cities. This is the accumulated wealth of an empire flowing back to European treasuries. Grab everything you can carry, Black Bart orders. We have maybe 10 minutes before those escorts figure out what's happening. Pirates work frantically to transfer treasure from the Spanish ship to their own vessel. The work is exhausting and dangerous, but the motivation is obvious. Each chest represents more wealth than most people see in their entire lives. Spanish naval escorts are approaching rapidly. Signal lanterns communicate between ships as the convoy attempts to coordinate a response to the attack. Your ship must escape immediately or face overwhelming force from professional warships. Cut the lines, Black Bart commands. We're leaving now. Your ship breaks away from the treasure galleon, loaded with more wealth than the crew ever imagined possible. Spanish warships fire in the darkness, but accuracy is nearly impossible under these conditions. Most shots miss completely. The escape continues through the night, as Spanish ships pursue your vessel. But your ship's superior speed in light winds allows gradual separation from the heavier warships. By dawn, the treasure fleet is a distant memory, and your crew is celebrating the most successful pirate raid in Caribbean history. Count the loot, Black Bart orders once safety is assured. The treasure recovered from the Spanish ship is worth over 10,000 pieces of eight. Divided among 20 crew members, each pirate receives 500 pieces of eight. This represents several decades of income for most people in the colonial Caribbean. You stare at your share of the treasure in amazement. Gold coins, silver bars, and precious gems worth more than you ever imagined owning. The wealth is almost abstract because the amounts exceed anything within your previous experience. So what now? You ask Mary, while examining a handful of Spanish gold coins. Now we disappear, she replies. This much treasure makes us targets for every naval force and rival pirate crew in the Caribbean. We need to find somewhere safe to enjoy our wealth before someone tries to take it away from us. This raises the fundamental question about piracy's ultimate purpose. Is it about accumulating wealth, or about the lifestyle and freedom that piracy represents? Now that you've achieved more financial success than most people dream of, what comes next? Black Bart announces the crew's next destination during the celebration dinner. We're sailing to Madagascar, he declares. There's a pirate colony there where we can live safely without worrying about naval patrols or colonial authorities. Time to enjoy the fruits of our labor. Madagascar represents the ultimate pirate retirement destination. Located in the Indian Ocean far from Caribbean naval forces, it provides complete safety for pirates who've accumulated enough wealth to live comfortably. But it also means permanent exile from the familiar world of the Caribbean. The voyage to Madagascar will take months and cross some of the most dangerous oceans on Earth. Many pirates don't survive the journey due to storms, disease, or attacks by other ships. But for those who do reach Madagascar, it offers the possibility of living freely with the wealth they've accumulated through piracy. As your ship sails away from the Caribbean toward an uncertain future in the Indian Ocean, you reflect on the extraordinary journey that brought you to this point. 6 months ago, you were thrust into a world of violence, danger, and desperate survival. Now you're wealthy beyond imagination and facing the prospect of permanent exile in a pirate paradise. The experience has taught you that piracy during the Golden Age was not the romantic adventure depicted in modern entertainment. It was a brutal struggle for survival by people who had few other options in a harsh and unforgiving world. But it was also one of the few paths to genuine freedom and financial independence available to ordinary people in the early 18th century. The pirates you've lived and fought alongside are not the colourful characters of fiction. They're real people who made desperate choices under impossible circumstances. Former slaves seeking freedom, women escaping gender-based oppression, sailors fleeing abuse by legitimate authorities, people who chose the dangers of piracy over the certainties of poverty and powerlessness. Their world is one where survival depends on violence, but also on cooperation and mutual support that transcends the social barriers of legitimate society. Where democratic principles govern ship operations in ways that won't exist in mainstream politics for generations, where merit and competence matter more than birth or social status. But it's also a world where death lurks constantly in the background, where disease, violence, and accident can end lives without warning, where the accumulation of wealth provides security but also creates new forms of danger, where the freedom gained through piracy comes at the cost of permanent separation from conventional society. As the days pass during the long voyage to Madagascar, you have time to truly understand what your life has become. The Caribbean fades behind you, taking with it any possibility of returning to the world you once knew. You're no longer just someone who happened to fall into piracy. You've become a pirate in every meaningful sense. The ship carries 20 souls toward an uncertain future in the Indian Ocean. Each person aboard has their own story of how they came to this point. Some joined willingly, seeking adventure or escape. Others were forced into piracy by circumstances beyond their control. All of them now share the same fate. Do you ever regret it? You ask Thomas during a quiet moment on deck. He considers the question carefully before answering. Regret what, exactly? Becoming a pirate? No. I regret that the world gave me so few options that piracy seemed like the best choice available. But given the alternatives I actually had, this was the right decision. This perspective captures something essential about the pirate experience. Most of these people didn't choose piracy from a range of attractive options. They chose it because every other path led to suffering, poverty, or death. Piracy offered the only realistic chance for freedom and prosperity. The voyage to Madagascar takes 3 months and crosses some of the most dangerous waters on Earth. Storms in the South Atlantic test the ship's construction and the crew's seamanship. Becalmed periods in the doldrums stretch for weeks without wind to fill the sails. Food and water run dangerously low multiple times. This is why so few pirates make it to Madagascar. Mary explains during one particularly difficult period when rations have been cut to near starvation levels. The journey itself eliminates most of the people who attempt it. Only the strongest and luckiest survive to enjoy their retirement. But your crew does survive. Through skill, determination, and considerable luck, the ship reaches the waters around Madagascar after 3 months at sea. The island appears on the horizon like a promised land for weary pirates seeking sanctuary from the endless dangers of their chosen profession. Madagascar in 1700 is unlike anywhere else on Earth. The island hosts several pirate colonies where former raiders from around the world have established their own communities. These settlements operate according to pirate customs and democratic principles, creating societies that are unique in human history. Welcome to Libertalia, Black Bart announces as the ship approaches a natural harbour on Madagascar's eastern coast. The closest thing to paradise that pirates ever created. Libertalia is the most famous pirate settlement on Madagascar. Founded by former Caribbean pirates who made the dangerous journey across the Indian Ocean, it represents the ultimate expression of pirate values and social organization. Democracy, equality, and individual freedom govern every aspect of community life. The harbour is filled with ships from around the world, former pirate vessels converted to peaceful trading ships, captured merchant vessels repurposed for legitimate commerce, naval ships that mutinied against their officers and sailed to Madagascar seeking freedom. The town itself is a remarkable achievement. Well-constructed buildings house thousands of former pirates and their families. Schools provide education for children. Markets offer goods from across the Indian Ocean. Workshops and factories produce everything needed for a self-sufficient community. How is this possible, you ask in amazement while walking through Libertalia's organized streets. Pirate wealth built it, Mary explains. Decades of successful raids provided the capital to create something completely new, a society based on pirate principles instead of traditional authority structures. Your crew is welcomed by other former pirates who made the journey to Madagascar in previous years. The greeting is warm but also somewhat sad. These are people who achieved their ultimate goal of retirement and security, but at the cost of permanent exile from the wider world. You'll like it here, promises a former captain named Roberts who arrived 5 years earlier. No naval patrols, no colonial governors, no kings or judges, just people trying to build something better than what they left behind. But even in paradise, challenges exist. Madagascar's isolation means limited contact with the outside world. News from Europe or the Caribbean arrives months late, if at all. Technological advances and cultural changes pass the island by. The price of safety is irrelevance. Do you ever miss the Caribbean? You ask Roberts during a welcome dinner. Every day, he admits. Madagascar is safe and comfortable, but it's also cut off from everything that's happening in the world. Sometimes I feel like we're living in the past while the rest of humanity moves forward without us. This isolation creates its own form of imprisonment. Physical walls don't confine the people of Libertalia, but geographic barriers achieve similar results. The freedom gained through piracy comes with limitations that become apparent only after achieving success. Your crew settles into life in Libertalia over the following weeks. Houses are purchased with treasure accumulated during Caribbean raids. Legitimate businesses are established to provide ongoing income. The transition from active piracy to peaceful retirement begins. But adaptation to civilian life proves more difficult than expected. Years of violence and danger have left psychological scars that don't heal easily. The constant vigilance required for pirate survival doesn't switch off just because safety has been achieved. I wake up every night thinking I'm still on the ship. Jack confesses during a gathering of your former crew. My body knows we're safe, but my mind hasn't figured it out yet. Maybe it never will. Post-traumatic stress is not a concept that exists in 1700, but the symptoms are clearly present in most former pirates. Nightmares, anxiety, and difficulty trusting others affect nearly everyone who survived the transition from violence to peace. Some former pirates adapt better than others. Those with useful civilian skills find purpose in building and maintaining the community. Others struggle with the lack of excitement and constant stimulation that characterized their previous lives. Piracy becomes addictive, Mary observes, while helping you establish a small trading business. Not just the money, but the intensity of the experience. Everything matters more when your life is constantly at risk. Peaceful existence can feel empty by comparison. This addiction to danger explains why some pirates never successfully retire. They return to raiding even after accumulating enough wealth for comfortable lives. The psychological rewards of piracy extend beyond financial gain to include the heightened awareness and social bonds forged through shared danger. Your own adaptation follows a gradual pattern. The first months are difficult as you struggle to find purpose without the clear objectives that structured pirate life. But slowly, new routines and relationships develop that provide meaning and satisfaction. The trading business you establish with Mary becomes modestly successful. Goods flow between Madagascar and the Indian Ocean trading networks that connect the island to markets in India, Arabia, and Southeast Asia. Legitimate commerce proves less exciting than piracy, but also less likely to result in violent death. We've become respectable merchants, Mary jokes while reviewing the business accounts after 6 months of operation. Our former selves would probably rob us if they had the chance. This transformation from pirate to merchant illustrates how people adapt to changed circumstances. The skills that made you successful as a pirate translate reasonably well to legitimate trade. Risk assessment, negotiation, and understanding of market dynamics all prove valuable in civilian contexts. But the wealth accumulated through piracy provides advantages unavailable to most legitimate merchants. Your business has capital reserves that allow for strategic investments and weathering of temporary losses. Success builds on previous success in ways that would be impossible without the foundation created by pirate raids. Years pass in Libertalia with increasing prosperity and decreasing excitement. Your trading business expands to include multiple ships and dozens of employees. The community grows and develops its own culture and traditions. Children are born who will never know the dangers their parents faced to reach this sanctuary. Do you think we made the right choice? You ask Mary during a sunset conversation 10 years after arriving in Madagascar. For us, yes, she replies thoughtfully. But I sometimes wonder about the people we robbed to get here. Spanish sailors and merchant crews who died, so we could have this peaceful life. The moral accounting is complicated. This ethical complexity haunts many former pirates who achieve success through retirement in Madagascar. The wealth that funds their peaceful existence was taken by force from people who had legitimate claims to it. But those same people often represented imperial systems that exploited and oppressed others. Were we criminals or revolutionaries? Becomes a question that former pirates debate during long evening discussions. The answer depends on perspective and values that shift over time as memory softens the harsh realities of active piracy. Some former pirates find peace through charitable work that attempts to balance the scales of their previous actions. Schools and hospitals are funded by pirate wealth as a form of penance for past violence. But these gestures can't resurrect the dead or restore stolen property to its original owners. The pirate colony of Libertalia eventually faces challenges that mirror those of conventional societies. Generational conflicts arise between former pirates and their children who take safety and prosperity for granted. Economic inequality develops as some businesses succeed, while others fail. Political disputes emerge over community governance and resource allocation. We created our own paradise, Roberts observes during one particularly heated community meeting. But we also brought human nature with us. The same problems that exist everywhere else eventually appear here too. This realization forces the community to confront uncomfortable truths about human society. Geographic isolation and democratic principles don't eliminate the fundamental challenges that affect all human communities. They just change the context in which those challenges must be addressed. Your role in the community evolves over time from successful merchant to informal leader and mediator. The skills developed during piracy prove valuable for resolving conflicts and building consensus around difficult decisions. Former pirates often become effective leaders because they understand both cooperation and competition. You've become quite the diplomat. Mary teases, after you successfully mediate a dispute between competing trading factions. Who would have thought that former pirates could be so good at peaceful conflict resolution? The irony is apparent, but not surprising. People who survived the violence and chaos of piracy had to develop exceptional skills in reading social situations and managing dangerous personalities. These same abilities transfer well to civilian leadership roles. As decades pass in Madagascar, news occasionally arrives from the outside world about the fate of piracy in the Caribbean. Naval forces have gradually suppressed most pirate crews through improved patrols and harsher punishments. The golden age of piracy that you participated in has ended. We got out at the right time, Thomas reflects while reading a letter that describes mass executions of captured pirates in Port Royal. Most of the crews we knew are either dead or scattered. The world moved on without us, but it also became more dangerous for people like we used to be. This news validates the decision to retire to Madagascar, but it also emphasizes the finality of that choice. The pirate world you knew no longer exists. Return would be impossible, even if it were desired. You're permanently residents of this isolated paradise whether you want to be or not. Your business continues to prosper as Madagascar develops stronger trading relationships with the wider Indian Ocean economy. The island's strategic location and the commercial skills of its pirate-descended population create genuine economic opportunities. Legitimate wealth slowly replaces the stolen foundations of the community's original prosperity. We've outlived our own legend, Mary observes during one of your regular evening conversations. The golden age of piracy is becoming history while we're still alive to remember it. Soon we'll be the only people left who know what it was really like. This role as living witnesses to a vanished world becomes increasingly important as the years pass. Younger residents of Madagascar have heard stories about piracy, but they lack direct experience of the violence and desperation that drove people to that life. Their perspective is shaped by romance rather than reality. Should we tell them the truth? You wonder aloud while watching children play games that romanticize pirate adventures, or let them keep their illusions about what we used to do. The question has no easy answer. Truth serves historical accuracy and moral honesty, but it also destroys innocence and forces confrontation with uncomfortable realities about how the community's prosperity was originally acquired. Most former pirates choose compromise. They share stories that emphasize the hardships and dangers of piracy while downplaying the most brutal aspects. This approach provides some education about historical reality without traumatizing listeners who never experienced those conditions themselves. Your own storytelling follows this pattern. Young people who ask about your pirate days receive honest accounts of the difficulty and danger, but not graphic descriptions of violence and death. The goal is education rather than shock value. Piracy was never the adventure that people imagine. You explain to a group of teenagers curious about their community's origins. It was dangerous, uncomfortable, and morally complicated. We did what we had to do to survive in a world that gave us very few choices. This explanation satisfies most questioners while avoiding the details that would be disturbing or inappropriate for young audiences. The broader lesson about how desperate circumstances can drive people to extreme choices remains clear without explicit descriptions of specific violent events. As you age in Madagascar, reflection on the pirate experience becomes more frequent and more complex. The passage of time provides perspective that was impossible during the immediate struggles of active piracy. Patterns and meanings that were invisible at the time become clear through distance and contemplation. "Would you do it again?" Mary asks during one of these reflective conversations. "Knowing what you know now about the costs and consequences, would you still choose piracy?" The question requires careful consideration. Piracy provided opportunities for freedom, wealth, and adventure that would have been impossible through legitimate means. But it also involved violence, moral compromise, and permanent exile from conventional society. Given the same circumstances and the same limited options, probably yes, you answer honestly, but I would hope that no one would face such desperate choices. The fact that piracy seemed like the best available option says more about the failures of society than about the attractiveness of criminal life. This perspective captures something essential about the pirate experience. It was not primarily about rejecting law and order, but about seeking alternatives when legal systems failed to provide basic human needs for freedom, opportunity, and dignity. The legacy of your pirate years extends beyond personal experience to influence the broader community of Madagascar. The democratic principles and egalitarian values that governed pirate ships have shaped the political culture of Libertalia in lasting ways. We created something unique. You reflect while observing a community meeting where decisions are made through open debate and democratic voting. A society that combines the best aspects of pirate culture with the stability of permanent settlement. This achievement represents perhaps the most positive outcome of the pirate experience. The same people who engaged in violence and theft also developed social innovations that could benefit humanity more broadly. The challenge is preserving and sharing those innovations without celebrating the violence that originally developed them. As your life in Madagascar approaches its end, the broader implications of the pirate experience become clearer. The golden age of piracy was simultaneously a criminal enterprise and a social movement that challenged existing power structures and created alternative forms of human organization. We were rebels before we knew what we were rebelling against, Mary observes during one of your final conversations. The freedom we fought for turned out to be more important than the treasure we thought we were seeking. This insight suggests that piracy's historical significance extends beyond its economic impact to include its role in developing and demonstrating alternative approaches to social organization. The democratic, egalitarian principles that governed pirate ships provided models for later political developments. Your death comes peacefully in Madagascar, surrounded by the community that former pirates built from the wealth accumulated through decades of dangerous raids. The transition from violence to peace, from criminal to citizen, from exile to community leader represents a complete transformation that would have seemed impossible during those early days of desperate survival. The story of your pirate life illustrates both the brutality and the complexity of the golden age of piracy. It was an era when desperate people made extreme choices in pursuit of freedom and opportunity that were unavailable through legitimate means. The violence and criminality were real, but so were the human aspirations that drove people to accept such terrible risks. Modern romanticization of piracy ignores the harsh realities that you experienced firsthand. The constant danger, poor living conditions, and moral compromises that characterized pirate life. But it also ignores the genuine achievements of pirate communities in developing democratic governance and social equality. The truth about piracy lies somewhere between romantic adventure and criminal enterprise. It was both and neither. It was what happened when people with limited options chose dangerous freedom over secure oppression. Their choices created suffering but also innovation, violence but also community, exile but also independence. Your experience demonstrates that survival in the age of piracy required not just physical courage but moral flexibility. The ability to adapt to extreme circumstances while maintaining some core sense of human dignity and mutual obligation. Those who succeeded often did so by finding ways to preserve their humanity despite engaging in inhumane acts. The lesson for modern audiences is not that piracy was admirable or that violence is an acceptable solution to social problems. Rather, it's that desperate circumstances can drive ordinary people to extraordinary actions, both destructive and creative. Understanding that dynamic helps explain not just historical piracy, but many other forms of rebellion and resistance throughout human history. The pirates of the Golden Age were neither heroes nor simple villains. They were complex human beings responding to impossible situations with whatever tools and options were available to them. Their story is ultimately about the human capacity for adaptation, innovation, and survival under conditions that would destroy less resilient people. That resilience, more than any treasure or adventure, represents the true legacy of the age of piracy. The demonstration that people can endure almost anything if they maintain hope for something better and willingness to work together toward common goals, even when those goals require crossing moral boundaries that peace-loving people would prefer to respect. So as you drift off to sleep in your comfortable modern bed, with its climate control and safety and abundance of options that pirates could never imagine, remember those who chose dangerous freedom over secure slavery. Remember that the choices they made, however flawed, helped create the world of possibilities that you now take for granted. Their legacy lives on not in romantic tales of treasure and adventure, but in the ongoing human struggle for dignity, opportunity, and the right to shape your own destiny, rather than accept whatever fate others assign to you. That struggle continues in different forms today, fought by people who face their own versions of impossible choices and limited options. The age of piracy ended centuries ago, but the human needs that created it persist. Understanding those needs, and the extreme measures people will take to fulfill them, remains as relevant today as it was during those desperate years when ordinary people became pirates rather than accept lives of powerless poverty. Sweet dreams, and may you never face choices that make piracy seem like the best available option.